Hello and welcome everyone to the round of 16th of AoE4 Pro League, $20,000 on the line in this 3v3 Age of Empires 4 tournament. In this set, we do have Vietnam Legends, ACCM, Bakhti, and Cool versus the Abbasid's mains, Papi Paw, MZ Shady, and Wham. This is going to be casted from recorded games because this set was played simultaneously to other sets which were broadcasted live. Nonetheless, we'll be taking a look at the entire set over here as we jump into game number 1 on Arabia. Looking at the players real quickly, we will have ACCM playing as the Blue French. His teammate is going to be Cool playing as the Red English, and on the other side, we'll have Bakhti playing as the Rus in yellow. Up north, you're going to have Wham playing as the Mongols in teal. In the pocket, you are going to have MZ Shady playing as the Green French, and last but not least, you're going to have Papi Paw playing as the Purple Rus. So both teams decided to have their Rus player playing as in a flank position, which is not something that you see very commonly nowadays. Usually the Rus player gets put into the pocket position, but when you also have French lining up alongside the Rus, sometimes you see the French being put into the pocket. This being said, the main difference between the two teams is that you're going to have an English player for the Vietnam Legends in red, whereas on the other side, you're going to have a Mongols player playing in teal. So at the beginning of the game, the English having quite a lot of longbow on the battlefield could give them a very nice early game potential. But as you go deeper and deeper into the game, the Mongols will have a lot more flexibility, so we'll have to see how that gets incorporated into the strategy of the Abbasid mains. Talking about these players real quickly, you do have the Vietnam Legends, a team with quite considerable amount of competitive experience. ACCM and Bakhti have been top 8 to top 16 Age of Empires 2 players for a long time, and Cool is a player that many people don't really know. He has been on Age of Empires 2 in like the 2018, 2019 years, but then he retired and started to play Age of Empires 1. Now, Age of Empires 1 is basically sort of like a national esport of Vietnam. There is hundreds of thousands of people watching it on Facebook Live, one of those sort of subcultures of Age of Empires, and with that, Vietnam and his community is something that provides a ton of viewership for Age of Empires 1. Basically, the only place where you can find Age of Empires 1 being watched by tons of people. I think they're not even using Definitive Edition, but a slightly different version of the game. The main point is that with Vietnam having tons of very good Age of Empires 1 players, Wu being one of the best of them is definitely a testament of his skill. Now, looking at him, he's opening up with a mill quite early on here. There's a mining camp on this gold mine. The gold mine is quite close to the town center, so that's going to help quite a bit. And of course, he already has a wood line set up over here. Meanwhile, on the other side, the big question that we're going to take a look at is what the Mongol player is up to. His OVO is all the way out at the back, and he's going for a couple of scouts. So let's see what Wham can do when it comes to aggression. He shouldn't really be able to do that much damage to Bakhti here, because if you think about it, Bakhti's got a very compact base over here with the Rus. Those scouts shouldn't really be able to do much here, whereas in the base of ACCM, you could potentially see those scouts getting quite a lot of damage done on those gold miners. For now, those scouts aren't really doing much, and they are apparently heading towards the base of what could be Cool, but it looks like they're slowly retargeting and heading towards the base of ACCM now. School of Cavalry coming in for ACCM, as you do have the Golden Gate coming for Papi Paw, same thing for Bakhti, and you would see the Council Hall most likely for Cool, although he's adding a couple of farms, which is something that you sometimes see from English players do. Obviously, the English farming bonus helps a lot here at the beginning, and considering that Cool doesn't have a ton of sheep to work with, this is something you can justify. He's also grabbing Wheelbarrow for the time being. First couple of scouts from Vam just now arriving on the battlefield. Their best target is most likely this gold mine here from ACCM, because everything else is just so compact and well defendable for Cool. Meanwhile, on the other side, you do have Bakhti playing in a yellow Rus. He has gotten 370 bounty for himself, as opposed to Papi Paw, who's at 415, so the purple Rus player was able to get a tiny bit of advantage when it comes to bounty, but both players have gotten up to that tier 2. Looks like Bakhti is going to lose one scout to the scouts of Papi Paw though, so that's going to hurt a tiny bit. Looking at the teal scouts, they're just now coming in here for Vam, and it looks like they could potentially deny a couple of deer over here from Bakhti, and indeed that's exactly what they are doing. This could be quite impactful because Bakhti was counting on that deer to get to that 450, 470 mark with his bounty. That's not going to be a possibility anymore. Scouts from Ram now behind the base of ACCM. ACCM up to feudal age though, so he should be able to start getting a couple of knights out here pretty soon. First couple of scouts from Vam. Now jumping on that gold mine, that's going to be a combined number of 6 scouts from Vam. So ACCM has to make some sort of military here in order to be able to push these guys off. Looks like he's going to bring his own scout back, but there is no military unit coming out. As we speak, ACCM doesn't have the food to make a knight right now, and that means that this gold mine is going to be a little exposed. First knight is going to be queued up very soon though, and I would expect ACM to pull like a couple of villagers to take that repair job, but instead he deletes the mining camp. Now, last time I checked, if you delete your mining camp, your opponent's Mongols actually gets the resources for setting it on fire. But that could have been a mistake here for ACCM. Now it looks like you're gonna have Cool getting his stone miners pushed. Cool wanted to play a double town center build over here. Obviously, English villagers having the bows to defend makes things a little easier, but still, it's gonna be a little difficult to protect that stone mine, and you can already see that Vam has been doing quite a lot of damage on these ecos. First knight is now coming out though for ACCM, so it should be able to push away these scouts for the time being. Might even be able to get 1 or 2 kills here. Poppy Paw behind this one is already coming in with his own scouts though, and he is going to take away the first couple of deer from the base of Cool. So he's opening up with his scouts and he's taking away the hunt from the opponent instead of ferrying in his own. Given the fact that he still has some sheep to work with, it makes some sense for him to steal hunt from the opponent at the beginning. Meanwhile, on the other side, for Bhakti, he's also going for professional scouts. He has gotten that upgrade already and he's ferrying in his own patch of huntables as we speak. Knight should be able to scare away those scouts for the time being, but you see MZ Shade is also sending a knight here, and the whole concept at this point is that they want to deny the second town center from Cool here. Alternatively, if Cool doesn't want to go for a second TC, which given the fact that he's been mining gold quite excessively is I think part of the game plan, we could also see Cool going up with that Stonewall Crawl style strategy that we have seen in some other sets, where the English player makes a couple of stone walls at the base of the opponent and then just places the longbows on top of them. That's always an option with the English, but Cool is pretty heavy on the stone department, so I would be surprised if this was just a stone wall crawl, because that usually takes 1 or 2 villagers on stone, but most definitely not a total of 5. And you already see that the resource bank for Cool in terms of stone is already at 128, so you don't need that much stone for that build. So I'm suspecting that there is going to be a second town center played over here for Cool. Got a pretty decent farming eco setup, also has a couple of longbows. The other side of the map is going to be quite peaceful. Bhakti going for a defensive tower on his wood line. The Mongol player, Vam, is up to feudal age as well. And as things stand, we're not seeing a ton of army coming out from him. Looking at his upgrades, he has gotten professional scouts and even survival techniques, so he's going to start ferrying in there as well. And of course, in the other pocket, MZ Shady is slowly coming in with knights. He's on double stables. He has not gotten professional scouts for himself, so he is not going to have any extra sheep or extra deer to work with. Looks like we're going to have some raids on ACCM's base. ACCM hasn't really been making a ton of knights as of yet. The first couple are just now coming out, and I love how Cool was able to donate a bunch of sheep to ACCM here. That's like 10 sheep that ACCM got, and that's going to help with his food eco, because ACCM is also not going for professional scouts. That's a very, very nice teamwork over here, I would say, as we already have Cool crawling up, and he's about to hit the eco of Poppy Paw. Poppy Paw almost up to castle age though, but given the fact that he's going horse archers, the first couple of horse archers might get picked off by longbows, so the timing here could be very nice for Cool, because once you get a ton of horse archers on the field, they will beat these longbowmen, but initially when you only have 1 or 2 horse archers, these longbows will do quite well against them. That's villager number 1 going down from Poppy Paw, and he's gonna have to relocate his lumberjacks. Looks like a scout might also buy the dust here at this base. Knights are now coming in though from MZ Shady, and just 2 or 3 knights here against those defenseless longbowmen could easily kill them, but with the knights coming in from ACCM, that should not be a possibility, although there's a lot here from Green, and even with those palings deployed, it looks like Cool's army is going to get cleaned up. That's a ton of knights here from Green. He has been on 2 stables for a lot longer than ACCM was, so obviously his knight numbers are slightly better right now. Even the scouts are coming in from Poppy Paw to clean this up, although you probably just want your knights to surround those, because that's the fastest way of killing them. Ultimately, all of those forces will get cleaned up, and Vam is also going up to Castle Age. He's aging up with the Step Redoubt. Meanwhile, Castle Age is in for Bhakti, also going for Horseman. In the pocket for ACCM, as I said, he was kind of silent so far. He's grabbing Horticulture, he's already gotten Wheelbarrows, so he's going for a very eco-heavy approach as things stand. Meanwhile, a couple of knights from ACCM come in. They do get 2 kills on the pocket's eco, so that's going to help a tiny bit, but these knights are likely going to get cleaned up by these green knights now, especially if there are a couple of purple horse archers coming in to harass as well. Looks like a con of Wham is going to get picked off by the longbows in the town center, so that's going to hurt a tiny bit for Wham, who is up to castle age in a matter of seconds. Meanwhile, you still have professional scouts ferrying in the leftover deer for multiple players. The Rus players are ferrying deer. You also have Wham doing that, so quite a lot of players sharing all those deer that are spread out across the map. For now, Bacty's keeping all of his horse archers back at home, and we do have one knight from ACCM coming in here, getting some beautiful hits on those villagers. It's not going to be a ton of villagers killed, but for a single knight, this is a pretty decent value here for ACCM, also forcing his opponent off from food. MZ Shady has quite a sizable force of knights right now. It actually amounts for about 10-15 at this point, so that's a pretty scary force. And it looks like Wham still has a couple of professional scouts working for him. Now you basically have no carcasses left. And in fact, you see Bacty sending out villagers to take the hunt. Not something that you see every day with the Rus. 11 villagers out here now. It's a little risky as well, because this is most definitely raidable. Bacty moving out with his warrior monk. It's being escorted by the knights of ACCM, so he should have no trouble picking up the next relic that he's planning. And on the right side, you see scouts are still moving in. I wonder what the plan with them is, because there is no more hunts over here. So you can do a couple of things. You can spread them around and get some vision, or alternatively you can try to harass the gold miners of Cool. Horse archers now in the middle of the battlefield, supported by some teal lancers from the Mongol player. This is most definitely not a fight that ACCM's feudal age knights are able to take, so ACCM is going to have to retreat for the time being. Meanwhile, there is a second town center for Cool, something that we haven't talked about, and that's going to give him a very, very nice economy, especially if you account for all that food eco coming from the English. See, it's 720 food per minute, and that comes exclusively from farming, so there's nothing to be ashamed of over there for Cool. That's going to be a very powerful economy, and so far, he hasn't been punished for that 2 town center build, so his economy is going to skyrocket very soon. Horse archers and lancers now moving in though, so you gotta be careful. Still, Network of Castles bonus is going to help here for Cool's archers, and of course you got quite a lot of knights here supporting from ACCM. Right now, it is 3 relics already for Bacty. On the other side, you have 2 relics for Puppypaw, so rather even on that regard. Bam. Currently on 2 stables, but he's now adding a couple of ranges as well, so we're seeing some crossbowmen hit the field. Obviously, they will take a lot of time to get to the battlefield, and they will also be picked off by the longbows, so I'm not exactly sure if crossbowmen is something that you want to go for here, if you are Wham. On the north, we do have horse archers moving in from Bacty, and it looks like Puppypaw's eco was caught off guard here. That's going to be 3 dead villagers out there. Nice little value for Bacty. Puppypaw bringing back relic number 3. He already has a monastery, so he's counting for that relic number 4 or 5 to come in, but we are yet to see that happening. And now it looks like Bacty's horse archers are being intercepted by MZ Shady's cavalry here. Quite a lot of heavy cavalry chasing those leftover horse archers, and that's a beautiful cleanup. It's not easy to clean up horse archers with melee cavalry, but MZ Shady made it happen. Bacty wasn't expecting the heavy cavalry to come from behind, and now the lancers are running into the eco of Wham over here. Cool. Having to pull all the villagers because there are some horse archers coming from the right side as well, and not everyone can fit into these town centers. That's the nasty thing here. Because you can garrison most of your villas in the TCs, but there are going to be quite a lot that are exposed, and that's exactly the villager that Puppy is hunting for. As things stand, Puppypaw is going to pull back for the time being, but this was quite a lot of damage done on Cool's economy. We can take a look at the villager count very soon, but you see the mill was taken down. You could see quite a lot of villagers dying left and right. You see Bacty just now coming in with some horse archer reinforcements. So ultimately, if you look at Cool's economy, he's at 41. For reference, let's compare it to, let's say, Wham. He's at 47. So the villager count isn't really there for Cool anymore, mainly because these raids worked out really well. Now, he still has a good farming eco going for him, so I don't think that he's in serious trouble. But those raids definitely had an impact on his economy. Looks like Puppypaw is pushing Bacty back quite effectively. Longbows, not in huge numbers, and they're also still feudal age units. The only 2 feudal age players are MZ Shady and Cool. This also means that ACCM is about to get Veteran Royal Knight, and that's exactly what we're seeing on the battlefield now, so his knights will be better than the ones from MZ Shady. MZ Shady not in this battlefield right now, so for now, it is a couple of horse archers from Bhakti holding this. Beautiful move from Puppy Paw to pick those off as the knights were retreating, and ultimately, they are taking some very cost-effective engagements over here now. The longbows are crawling up, but once again, retreat is done very nicely by Puppy Paw, so as things stand, you are gonna have the horse archers slowly picking apart the army of Cool here, and you see Cool wanted to age up with the White Tower, which is something that you commonly see for a 2TC English build. But with the knights coming in now from MZ Shady, suddenly it turns out to be a 3 versus 1.5, basically, because you don't see any yellow horse archers here, and you also don't see a ton of longbows anymore from Cool. He's rushing up that White Tower as we speak, but it looks like now we're going to see a switch of targets by Wham, MZ Shady, and Puppy Paw. Remember that they have knights, lancers, and horse archers, so their army is highly mobile as compared to the army of Vietnam Legends, where Cool's got a very slow-moving army of longbows. So you want to leverage that mobility if you are the team of Puppy Paw. Try to get some raids going on the other side, and that's exactly what we're going to see. In fact, we already have Mangonels crawling up here, supported by some crossbowmen. Now, if you're pushing the Roost player, you probably prefer to have foot archers over crossbowmen, unless you have some sort of support to that. And speaking of support, we have the Lancers crawling in, Mangonels already ready to push the Lumberjacks. I feel like if you are the Abbasid mains right now, you probably want to push this side right now. You have 2 Mangonels here, you have crossbowmen in here. You could triple team this player very effectively. Just bring on the horse archers, and you should be able to do a lot of damage here to back the Mangonels now coming in and setting up. Getting some volleys out on the towers, Lancers already coming in. Mangonels now getting another volley out here, so Bhakti has to be very careful fighting this. ACCM's forces are converging on those crossbowmen from the north though. But this is a beautiful choke point to hold, so it's going to be difficult for those knights to get a good engagement. Mangonels now disengaging, though knights will clash into each other. Crossbows will take some very, very nice hits over here on those blue knights, though. But the lack of horse archers from Puppy Paw's team is going to hurt them quite a bit. Their army was just a little late to the party, with all the Mangonels now going down. Knights will trade off against each other, but it's a nice fight for Vietnam Legends, being able to use the horse archers against the crossbows and not letting the opponent's crossbows kill those blue knights. This being said, there is now a massive force of green knights coming in. These are still feudal age knights, but of course, since MZ Shady never invested his resources into going into Castle Age, his numbers are way better than the ones from ACCM, and that's exactly what we're seeing over here. And with all those idols from Bhakti, it's gonna be difficult to replenish those horse archer numbers. Now you see a massive horde of horse archers coming in from Puppy Paw. He's currently sitting at 3 relics. Bhakti is sitting at 5, so slight advantage there for Bhakti as he's making TC number 2 happen on the left side. He needs access to a new forest, and that's the town center that's going to provide that to him. Meanwhile, on the right side, Cool was able to stabilize, but as I said, his biggest problem right now is lack of mobility. And you see, he's trying to pursue those horse archers, but that's going to be difficult. Very nice raid over here by Puppy Paw. He's going to pick off what seems to be 5, 6, 7 villagers right now. In fact, looks like the horse archers are committed to try and take down those longbows, and I think that's the right decision to make right now. You have quite a lot of horse archers over here. Longbow numbers aren't spectacular, so you can intercept this army and clean all of that up, which means that Cool's army right now is not going to be a factor. And now you have crossbows and knights pushing the left side, supported by some Mangonels. I think this is the right time to switch sides with those horse archers, and once again, hit the base of Bhakti. Now you have Castle Age, Veteran Royal Knights as well. For MZ Shady, it's looking better and better for them right now, although ACCM has already gotten the Royal Bloodlines upgrade on his cavalry because he aged up with the Royal Institute, so he's now going for the Veteran Royal Knight upgrade. That's not something that MZ Shady has right now. In fact, he aged up with the Guild Hall, so he won't even have that. The more I see team games, the more I'm seeing that the Royal Bloodlines is just so impactful in Castle Age that you must go for the Royal Institute for that. But this could be a massive deficit to overcome for MZ Shady's team. Horse archers are still moving in though, and they're getting quite a lot of villager kills. So this... So despite the fact that ACCM's cavalry is much more powerful right now, the numbers are just not there. Horse archers from Bhakti now moving in to intercept all those horse archers from Puppy Paw. So this is mostly going to be a cleanup, but it's probably gonna come at a price, because as you see, the moment Bhakti pulls away his horse archers to the right side, his base is gonna get pushed by Wham. And now you're seeing villagers going down from Bhakti. There's already a battering ram coming up. Mangonels aren't really doing much right now, but they could be doing a lot more. So the fact that Bhakti had to pull all his horse archers to the right side to deal with this one is quite concerning right now for Vietnam Legends, because behind this, Bhakti is losing his economy. I'm not even sure if he noticed it just yet, because there have been so many dead villagers, so many dead horse archers, and now with those mangonels setting up and taking down the town center, replenishing those villagers is also going to be a challenge. ACCM is now coming in with a couple of knights to relieve the pressure on his teammate. On the right side though, you're now seeing more and more horse archers gathering, trying to push the base of Cool. Still, the mobility advantage is on the side of the Abbasid mains, and that's going to help quite a bit here, making sure that they can isolate one player. Especially the lack of mobility for the English is going to hurt for Cool's team. Obviously, it's not Cool's fault at all, it's just the English civilization being much slower, so when you're playing with the English, you have to be the aggressor, otherwise your opponent will just roam past you and ultimately just hit your teammate that's exposed. Right now, not a lot of horse archers on the battlefield here for Poppy Paw though, so this Mongol force could easily get cleaned up by the horse archers if they're not cautious, especially because this is a 3 versus 1.5 right now. Only a handful of knights from MZ Shady versus quite a lot of mangonels. And of course, longbows, horse archers out here. 2 mangonels setting up here as they're getting some nice shots on those longbows. Cavalry from ACCM charging in, and remember, those cavalry units have 300 HP as opposed to the lancers having 230. Of course, the crossbows will help, but with so many longbows and horse archers out there, the crossbow numbers could fall quite easily. Mangonel's getting some beautiful shots on though, and many of those horse archers and longbowmen fall. Looks like, especially with 3 sacred sites under the control of the Abbasid mains now, this is going to be more and more difficult to hold, because they weren't able to destroy the army of Vam here, and Vam was basically doing this 1 versus 3. These were the combined forces of Vietnam Legends, and now you see Vam is just knocking down buildings, setting them on fire, which gives him a very nice bounty for every building that's set on fire. And as you see, from the right side, you see an increased influx of horse archers, and you also have some knights coming in from MZ Shady trying to raid ACCM. 3 mangonels now, second battering ram on the way, and now if you're Bhakti, you have to be careful about the fact that all 3 of your landmarks are very close to each other, so those could go down really easily if you're not paying attention. Horse archers will soon have to engage this one. Villagers getting massacred underneath that town center, and now the biggest problem for Bhakti is that his food income is going to collapse at this pace. He probably has some villagers out here gathering food, I would expect. Where's his food income coming from? He's got 22 on food somewhere. Oh, it's right here. That's a very sad food income. That's a problem for Bhakti right now, because he's about to run out of food, and his town center is also no longer safe. Notably, he doesn't have a single villager garrison inside the town center, only 1 horse archer, so it's not like the town center is going to contribute that much to the fight. And you see Bhakti pulling up with a couple of springles trying to snap the mangonels. The speed arrow was popped by Wham, and that's going to give him a chance to jump on those springles from behind. Come the knights of MZ Shady, and now the mangonels are about to set up. Springolds are down, mangonels getting some nice volleys out there, and basically all the forces of Bhakti are getting steamrolled. Unless there is something crazy going on elsewhere, and we do have ACCM going in with some raids, but that basically is it. I feel like this is going to be next to impossible to hold for Vietnam Legends. You see, we have green knights over here supported by crossbowmen, and the town center is about to fall here. Soon will be followed by the other 2 landmarks. ACCM, I don't see any cavalry coming in from him though. And on the right side, we have another group of horse archers assembling. 3 sacred sites are also under the control of the Abbasid mains. So, at this point, it is a decisive lead, I would say, to them. Town center goes down, and now you have 2 landmarks to destroy here, but honestly, you probably are better off just destroying the production buildings, because you don't want to defeat Bhakti, you just want to make sure that he's unable to contribute anything to the game for the next 20 minutes. It's probably easier to destroy these production buildings than it is to take down these landmarks, although, obviously, if you have time, you can take down landmarks and just win the game with that. There were some raids by ACCM, but those didn't really do enough to compensate for Bhakti's base getting absolutely torn to shreds. And you see, those horse archers are just getting massacred by all those mangonel fire. Just look at that. You have 4 mangonels constantly shooting over here. Finally, longbows are crawling up here, and you see, even a tower is planned here by Cole to try and help his teammate. But in just 20-30 seconds, you're going to see Bhakti getting defeated here, because that is the last landmark that needs to be destroyed. And I don't know how 35 longbowmen will be able to battle 4 mangonels here. Even with staggered formation, they're barely able to touch those mangonels. And that Abbey of the Trinity is about to go down, and with that, Bhakti would be eliminated. Mangon on fire once again, tearing apart all those longbows. And on the right side, we don't really have anything going on, really. Just some proxy warfare. We have Imperial Age for cool here, but that's basically it. Now, what can he do with Imperial Age? You could see in the right side that before getting defeated, Bhakti basically donated as many resources as he could to his teammates. So they knew exactly that Bhakti was gonna get defeated. Notably, this also means that quite a lot of relics could fall into the hands of the opponent as we take a look at the Sacred Site countdown still going on. So at this point, the Abbasid's mains are also getting closer and closer to that Sacred Site victory. Pool needs to make something happen with that Imperial Age, otherwise there is no chance. The problem is that they don't need to fight Cool. They can just go straight into ACCM's base, and then ACCM is going to have some help from Cool, but that also means that Cool won't be able to push the opponent. That's the biggest problem right now for Vietnam Legends. And if this is just a stalemate here, then at some point we're going to see the Abbasid mains also going to Imperial and winning the game. With that, ACCM taps out, and the Abbasid mains take game number 1. I feel like this game mostly came down to just the mobility aspect of this game. Because if you think about it, Bhakti had more relics than his opponent, who had 2,000 worth of boom. His eco was hurt quite badly, so it didn't work out as good as he intended it to be. But the most important thing was that Ku's army was never in position. And it's not his fault, it's the civilization's fault. Because at this point, the English are just way too slow compared to the opponents. The opponents had lancers, they had knights from the French player, and horse archers. So all three players had high mobility. They could always just strike at a position where those longbowmen weren't present, and in the end, they were able to take that victory out there. So with that, we're going to take a look at the statistics, and we are jumping into game number 2, which is going to be on the home map of Vietnam Legends. As I said before that, quick look at the statistics. Looking at the economy numbers, Poppy Paul with 21,000 food. That's quite a lot in the bank for him. Cool, 17,000 only. Look at the gold though. Vam, 12,000. Most of that comes from the separate up of the Mongols, of course. Other side, if you look at the Rus players, Bhakti had 7,000 in the bank, and the other Rus player was Poppy Paw. He has 9,000, so a tiny bit more. Obviously, I think Poppy Paw was mining some more gold because the relic advantage was on the side of Bhakti, but part of that also comes from the fact that Bhakti's economy was idle for so long, and ultimately, if you compare the two players, you see 9,000 food difference, 4,000 wood difference. That's what is the reason why the military difference was there. And ultimately, the efficiency is also on the side of the Abbasid mains. 152 kills for Poppy Paw, 158 losses. Not spectacular with horse archers, but Wham with 125 to 86. Also 20 buildings raised, quite notable as well. And MZ Shady, 88 kills, 42 deaths. That was a pretty decent KD for him. This being said, we're jumping into game number 2, which is going to be on the home map of the Vietnam Legends, which is Hill and Dale. Looking at the civilizations, looks like the Abbasid mains will finally be faithful to their name, and we're going to have an Abbasid civilization pick here. Vam is going to be playing English, MZ Shady is going to be picking the Abbasids, and Poppy Paw will be playing the Chinese. Other side, you're going to have Bhakti playing the Holy Roman Empire, ACCM playing with the Mongols, and you're going to have Cool playing as the Chinese. So welcome to Hill and Dale. Up north, you're going to have ACCM playing as the Mongols in blue. It is going to be red for Cool in the pocket as the Chinese, and yellow for Bhakti as the Holy Roman Empire. Other side, you're going to have English for Vam in green. You're going to have MZ Shady playing as the Abbasid dynasty in the pocket in teal. And down south, you're going to have the Chinese player playing as purple. So looking at these civilizations real quickly, the first thing that you notice is that there is gonna be Mongols. And the Mongols is a bit of a wildcard civilization on this map because they can be a powerful late game civilization, but they are also very good when it comes to early aggression. And the reason why that's so impactful is because if you think about it, this map oftentimes is all about that boom, all about building up that economy. So the fact that you can potentially put some pressure on the opponent's eco is something that could be immensely helpful. And that basically forces the opponent to go for earlier walls, and if they fail with those walls, then there is a legitimate chance that you can slow down the opponent's boom. And basically the idea with the Mongols here is that you just want to make sure that the opponents will be slowed down with their boom, and then your two teammates will just finish them off. So looking at the situation for ACCM, he already has an OVU up, and you see there's already a stable coming up. So ACCM wants to go pretty aggressive here, probably wants to keep these openings out here, because that's probably the biggest jackpot that you can have. Keep one of these openings out. Because if you can do that, you're going to have a chance for your potential Holy Roman Empire player to go for a fast castle, get a couple of knights in, and those knights could do a ton of damage to the opponent. So there's a lot to love about that one. Papipo had a very good start gathering the sheep over here. You see he's got 11 surrounding that mill, and that's definitely going to be nice. ACCM is coming in to harass the villagers from the right side. In the middle, MZ Shady is playing the Abbasid. He is on gold right now. His mining camp is not far away from that stone mine, so if he wants to go for a multiple TC boom, which is quite likely, I think he doesn't necessarily need the second mining camp out there. If he really wants to save wood, he could just use this mining camp. It's not going to be perfectly effective, but you could think about that as an option. Meanwhile, Barbican of the Sun... Actually, no. It's a council hall. I got confused by the civilization. It's a council hall coming in for Wham right in this crossing, so that's going to help reinforce that side and making sure there is going to be no aggression coming through. And as much as the Mongols are good with early aggression, the English can do something very similar. So you would expect Vietnam Legends to also go for some early wars. As things stand, our Chinese player in the pocket is supervising the mill. It's also on the hunt. And you see Cool is taking out the deer whenever they are close to the mill. That's a nice little touch. So if this deer walks close to the mill, he's going to kill it there, and now he's bringing in a ton of sheep. So both Chinese players will have a lot of sheep to work with, and that's obviously an ideal situation for them, because the supervised mill is what really gives the power to their food economy at the beginning. You see 450 food per minute for Puppy Paw. Cool is only at 330, but that's probably because he has way less villagers on the food. Not something that you really have to worry about at this point. And it looks like we're also going to have what seems to be a forward tower from ACCM. He's pulling 4 scouts. We'll see if there is 2 more coming in, and indeed there is. As I said, the whole concept with the Mongols here is that you want to delay multiple players. You want to harass the Chinese player ideally, or potentially the Abbasid player. So players that ideally just want to go for multiple town center and build up their eco, slow them down, because then your own players will be able to get a massive eco advantage and then snowball the game. Now, as I said, the English can do something similar, although obviously the fact that the council hall needs to be built for the first couple of longbowmen to arrive delays that push. So you see, HCM scouts are just now arriving, whereas the longbows are nowhere to be found on the battlefield. So there's a little more time for ACCM's team to wall up over here. Looks like the Khan is now coming in. Imperial Academy is the building of choice here for Puppy Paw. It's going to cover the lumberjacks and the mill as well. So it is going to boost the tax income from both of those drop-off sites, as we do have now 5 scouts in here, and this is going to be a difficult fight for Puppy Paw to have. We already have the villager being harassed by the scouts, and you see some of the deer or some of the sheep are being killed out here. That's because you want to kill them as far away from the mill as possible, and now ACM is coming in to burn down the mill. That mill is quite important at this point for Puppy Paw, of course, because that's the center of his food eco, and he also has a ton of sheep nearby. So I feel like this could be very worrisome for him. If that mill goes down, there is even a legitimate chance that Puppy Paw could potentially lose some of those sheep. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him sending villagers to kill the sheep to prevent them being taken, and that's exactly what we're seeing from him. He's killing the sheep because he knows that when that mill goes down, there's a good chance that ACCM can take the sheep. He killed a couple of sheep out there. ACCM, can he get the sheep right now? It is still under the control of Puppy Paw, So as things stand, those are not available to be taken, and it looks like they will turn on the afterburners and make a run for a town center. There's a tower coming up here for ACCM, something that Papipo does not see, and that tower is going to harass those food getters for a long time. This is exactly how you want that early aggression to work out. Meanwhile, though, you got a villager that's being intercepted by a wolf and a scout on the right side, so Backteeth will be unable to roll, and this could have long-lasting consequences, because as you see, the longbows are moving to the right side. So those longbowmen could very well march into the base of Backteeth at this point. So far, so good for a Vietnamese team, because as things stand, they're able to harass the Chinese player, and obviously, Chinese being one of the best late-game civilizations out in the entire game, your whole concept when it comes to the Chinese is that you want to have a strong boom, get to Imperial Age with Fire Lancers, and then just start snowballing the game that way. And the fact that your boom is stopped like this is definitely something that's annoying. Papipo has been mining some stone, so he was planning to go for second TC, but you see he has to start adding Spearmen, he has to defend against this one, and in general, he's being slowed down quite considerably. Now, as I said, the lack of those walls on the right side for Bhakti could haunt him quite a bit. Now, the good news for him is that he could do some backup walls over here if he really wants to. Like, make some walls here, make some walls here, and then use that town center to keep those longbows out. So it's not the end of the world for him right now, but obviously not ideal that longbows could get into your base. ACCM, now reaching feudal age, he's still very active with those scouts, and he's also managed to keep some of these openings in there. So if his teammates want to play aggressive, that's an option there as well. There's also a hole on the left side that someone other than the Mongol player will have to wall in. Looks like ACCM is taking this fight as we speak. You're going to have one spearman going down. The mining camp is half dead, but of course with a supervised barracks, the Chinese player Papipo should be able to get some more spearmen out there and discourage those scouts from further aggression. Now, you see a lot of spearmen coming out, not something that you expected necessarily from the Abbasid player going this aggressive, and suddenly that hole being there on the right side is going to be more than concerning for Bhakti. Because not only are you seeing dozens of longbows coming forward, you also see quite a lot of spearmen join the party. Usually the Abbasids are going for a 2 town center boom here, but in this instance, MZ Shady is going to go a lot more aggressive, and he's coming in with double barrack spearman production. And remember, the Abbasids can go for the siege up immediately because they don't need to grab the upgrade. So these guys can start making rams immediately. You see the walls are there for Bhakti, so that was his grand plan. He needed some walls over here though as well, because as you see, now the longbows will run past. He's getting closer and closer to Castle Age, I do believe. So if that's the case, he can get a couple of knights and he might be okay. But as you see, he's once again a little too late to walling, and this is what I was referring to. When you have civilizations like Mongols or civilizations like the English out there, you really want to wall as soon as possible, otherwise there's a legitimate chance that your opponent will be there before you finish with your walls, and then you're in trouble. So as much as the Chinese player of the Abbasid mains is getting delayed right now by ACCM, the Holy Roman Empire player is also going to be delayed. The only saving grace is that the Regnitz Cathedral is coming in for Bhakti right now, so he could get a siege workshop up and get a couple of Manganols out, or if he just wants to destroy the rams, a couple of Springolds. So getting to Castle Age here might be a saving grace for him. But obviously, this is not an ideal situation for him to be in, and this is not something that was part of the plan at this point. You have only one TC being used right now for MZ Shady, but he's mining stone, so there's a chance for a second TC soon. And for Vam, he's playing one TC for now, just going full on the longbow push. This is a scary push, to be honest, because now you're seeing about 10-15 spearmen arriving on the battlefield. You're going to have about the same number of longbows out there. And the town center for Bhakti is already under attack. Regnitz Cathedral also is going to get delayed because the town center is shooting at the ram, so the longbows can dive in. 2 villagers go down, and that Castle Age is being heavily delayed here. In fact, I'm thinking that now the Holy Roman Empire player of Vietnam Legends is being delayed more than the Chinese player was from the Abbasid mains. If you think about it, this Chinese player is pretty much safe now. Barbican of the Sun coming in as well, so Song Dynasty is going to be in. He's on 2 town centers, whereas if you look at this side, this is getting very worrisome for Bhakti right now, because as things stand, his town center is under a lot of pressure. I love the use of the emergency repairs, though. That's going to help him quite a bit, and it's going to slow down this aggression for quite a while. You see, it is healing that HP back up. Emergency repairs being a quite powerful ability right now. Still, those longbows are denying the Regnitz Cathedral, and now you see that ACCM has to react to this one by bringing in his own archers. A nest of bees pops out for cool though, So he's going to help out against that aggression. And now I think this is going to stall out. But once again, I think this aggression has set back the Vietnamese team quite a bit. And you see, Baek Thi is losing dozens of vills. Now, of course, he's gonna be able to make up for it once he gets to Imperial with the Palace of Swabia. But before Imperial Age, for the Holy Roman Empire, and before the relics in the Regnitz Cathedral, their eco is quite weak. They, of course, have the Aachen Chapel, but if you look at the population of Baek Thi right now, he's got 27 villagers. Even with the Aachen Chapel, his eco will be so weak that it's going to take a lot of time for him to get to Imperial. And if he gets delayed to Imperial, that is just going to mean that he's going to be slow rebuilding that army. Now, those spearmen are getting absolutely torn to shreds from those nest of bees. That volley was beautiful, and a couple more rockets fly out. So now, even with emergency repairs, I feel like this is gonna be a hold for the Vietnam Legends. Behind this one, the towers are being cleaned up by Poppy Paw, so at this point, it very much seems like the Fortville might even get intercepted. This is going to be a cleanup. Longbows are still coming in small numbers, so we're going to have a tally at the final losses from both sides, because Baek Thi's eco was set back very heavily, and this is what I was referring to. Baek Thi wanted to collect relics for a long time. He couldn't do it. Baek Thi wanted to go for a fast Imperial here. He isn't going to be able to do it. If you look at some build orders with the Holy Roman Empire on this map, you can see Imperial Ages with like 12-13 minutes timing, and Baek Thi is going to be nowhere close to that, mostly because these wars were never finished, so he was pushed very heavily. So now you see his resource income isn't spectacular, and it's going to take a lot of time for him to get to Imp. He hasn't even gotten the first relic, so he was definitely set back very heavily here. Now, one thing that ACCM could have done on this map is go for a Mongol trade boom with the Silver Tree. Instead, he decided to go for the Yam network with the Deer Stones, which is fine for the time being, but I feel like there was a great opportunity for a trade boom here. And you see, you already have a market for Baek Thi here, so everything would have been set up for that trade boom. Now, in the pocket, you do have a Song Dynasty already for Kuo, but he has been on one town center, as opposed to his opponent, who is on 2 TCs for a long time. So looking at the villager counts real quickly, as the nest of bees are crawling out, so Vam has to be very careful with those archers, otherwise they'll be picked apart. Bit of a mismicro by ACCM, though, having his archers run in there without shooting, so quite a few of them will get picked apart. As things stand, 62 villagers for Poppy Paw with the Chinese. His counterpart is at 49, so you see, Pool having to make Palace Guards and Nest of Bees happen here is going to set him back when it comes to getting that second TC up, and that's going to set him back when it comes to the boom. Meanwhile, in the other pocket, you already see MZ Shady is also on 2 town centers, and the yellow Holy Roman Empire player has 0 relics. He doesn't have any kind of boom going right now, so this is the biggest problem right now for Vietnam Legends. Their opponents all have pretty powerful economies. 2 town centers for the English player Wham with an English farming eco, and now he's going for English Knights. And of course, on the other side, 2 town center boom from the Abbasid player, make it 3 even. And of course, a 2 town center Song Dynasty boom from Poppy Paw. So suddenly the economy of the Abbasid mains is just light years ahead compared to Vietnam Legends. As I said, it comes down to that early pressure, because if you are able to do damage to multiple players with that early pressure, that's your jackpot. And I loved how MZ Shady has used his spearmen. He had a couple of spears out, helping out his teammate, helping making rams, but he wasn't fully committed to that push. And the reason why that's important is because now he has a good economy behind this one. It's not like he lost that push and now he's just a non-factor for 15 minutes. He still has a very good economy behind this. And they were able to slow down Cool quite a bit. They were able to slow down Baek Thi by an awful lot. Now Baek Thi is slowly getting back on track. You see, he's piling up the resources he needs. Relic number 1 is in already for him. Relic number 2 should be accessible, but obviously, he was slowed down quite a bit here. ACCM still has quite a lot of archers moving in here. He's going up the Castle Age with the Step Redoubt. On the right side, Bam is still in Feudal Age, but I would expect him to get to Castle pretty soon with those resources. Indeed, he's working towards that. ACCM now reaching Castle Age. On the right side, we do have quite a lot of Nest of Bees unprotected here, so despite the fact that they could massacre all those spearmen out there, they instead will be picked apart. This Nest of Bees is about to set up though, and it's going to get a volley out, so quite a lot of those spearmen will be decimated. In the end, about 10 spearmen traded to 2 Nest of Bees feels slightly better for MZ Shady. Not spectacular, but it's 2 siege weapons down. Longbows will be safe because of that, because without Nest of Bees, those longbows will be able to keep the distance between themselves and the archers, slowly micro backwards, and just grind down those archer numbers. The only players in Feudal Age still are MZ, Shady, and Wham, but both of them are playing multiple town centers, so it's not a major surprise. Line formation for Wham, making sure that his opponent won't be able to get some good Nest of Bees hits on those units, and you see he's retreating in a quite orderly fashion, picking off quite a lot of those archers, really. The micro is good here. It's really good from him. Now the Palace Guards are charging in, and now the Longbows are focusing them, so this is going to be a cleanup ultimately by Cool and ACCM, but obviously those Longbows getting a couple of kills for themselves before going down is definitely valuable. Oh, the Prelate is going to get intercepted. Oh, that would have been a disaster, and it is a disaster for Bhakti in the end. He was already set back very heavily, and that Prelate being intercepted, that is just terrible. It also feels like it was a miscommunication between the Vietnamese players, because ACCM and Cool were chasing those longbows, so I would have expected them telling his teammate that, look, there is going to be a couple of longbows heading your way. Watch out with your Prelate. Now, Vam is going for a couple of horsemen, not something I necessarily expected with the English. Sometimes you see English knights on the field, English horsemen, not something that you see every day, but given the fact that there is mostly archers on the battlefield and palace guards, those could work out quite nicely. ACM is all the way up here with the Ovu, and he's grabbing improved siege engineering for his units, so he probably wants to start getting some mangonels on the battlefield and just try to make a push on the Chinese player. He mostly has archers though, which means that he's going to struggle against those lancers, and you see Papipo is going to get some nice value for those Chinese lancers. I don't think ACM was expecting those to be on the battlefield. You expect the Chinese player to just go for a boom and not have a single army on the battlefield. Meanwhile, with the horsemen also out for Wham, he's going to be able to finish off that group of archers potentially, and you also see lancers coming from MZ Shady. This is a little risky, I would say, for the Abbasid mains, because right now they have 3 players going for cavalry, so if any of the opponents goes for spearmen, in particular the Mongol player, then this could easily be a disaster for them. In fact, he gets to Imperial Age, he currently has 2 relics, he has aged up with the Palace of Schwabia, so now he's able to start cutting into that villager deficit, but obviously it's going to take some time for his eco to kick in. Meanwhile, I want to highlight that Vam has been booming on 3 town centers in Feudal, and he has gone up with the King's Palace, so he's on 4 town centers. His economy is going to be like a juggernaut very soon. Looks like the archers of ACM are heading towards the base of Papipo. He's going up with the stone walls for now. He has been on 2 town centers for quite a while, and in Song Dynasty, even grabbing a monastery, so he wants to start picking up relics over here. There's one over here, and quite a few close to his base, so you can really justify that decision here, based on the relic locations. MZ Shady moving up to that gold mine with a dozen of villagers right now. He has to be careful, obviously, not to get those intercepted. ACCM now pulling up a mangonel as well. The biggest problem here, I do believe, for them is that they don't have any anti-cavalry component to their army. So, archers, mangonel, this is a nice thing, but what are you going to do against a couple of lancers or even horsemen? And we could see quite a few of those out there. In fact, the horsemen were trying to get to the right side over here. There is a wall that's now open. There's a backup wall over here at Bhakti's base. Bhakti still needs to fix this problem on the right side, because that's a growing concern for him right now. A couple of villagers will be picked off here for Papipo, but I feel like that's a price that he's going to accept for getting these stone walls up. So he's going to be safe for the time being. Meanwhile, on the right side, we are getting iron undermesh, so quite a lot of effort towards the cavalry play of the English over here. Looks like we're going to have some palace guards from Cool coming to the right side, but as things stand, it's a fairly peaceful game, which should favor the Abbasid mains, because they do have a fairly sizable eco lead, I do believe. Cool with the best food economy in this game. Bhakti, quite a lot of gold income as well. But if you look at the villager counts, we can take a look at that. Vam is already at 104. Looking at ACCM, for example, is at 63. Cool is at 114, as opposed to the other Chinese player at 119. That's rather even. And then Bhakti is currently at 84 with the Holy Roman Empire. And MZ Shady is sitting at 108. So it's mostly even economies. ACCM is the one quite a bit behind, but he's on 2 town centers now, so he's gonna be able to catch up at some point. He's getting quite a lot of pressure done on this right side, but you already see men-at-arms from MZ Shady, supported by some cavalry in here as well. No veteran upgrade on those horsemen just yet for Vam though. He does have the first defense upgrade, however, and now the Manatrams are coming in. Mangonel's getting some nice shots out, but that Mangonel is going to get taken down, and I feel like this is a beautiful surround and an absolute slaughter here. As I said, ACCM had absolutely no anti-cavalry component here to his army. Even if he had, the Men-at-Arms would have slaughtered those archers, but I feel like he massively overestimated the capabilities of those archers, because those archers wouldn't have been able to do anything here. He was up against Lancers, he was up against Horsemen. The Ram is left alone here for a brief moment, which is a little weird, but the wall should still hold, and now you see a counterattack coming in from MZ Shady's team. On the right side, you see Stonewalls coming in from Wham, and you see he wants to just lock their opponents inside their bases, minimize their map control, and prevent them from pushing out. For now, Bacti is going to accept that, and he's going to stick within his own base for the time being. Lancers still intercepting quite a lot of archers over here, slowly getting killed though, because we are seeing some crossbowmen being mixed in by ACCM. Meanwhile, the Horsemen still in sizable numbers. You do have the Men-at-Arms out for MZ Shady as well. Those will help against the archers, and this is the magic of the Horsemen. The Horsemen will perform good against both the archers and the crossbowmen, so this is once again something that ACCM doesn't have a good answer to. Now we have some Elite Knights arriving from Bacti though, and those will smack those Horsemen in the face. And I also see some Fire Lancers hitting the field already for cool. I would expect Fire Lancers to be a thing very soon for Poppy Paw as well, as MZ Shady is going up to Imperial Age with the Trade Wing. This is something that you sometimes see players do with the Abbasids, but usually they age up with the Military Wing. And one thing that they can do, I'm not sure if that's a bug or a feature, but after they have gotten to Imperial Age, they can get the final wing as well for the same price as they got their Imperial Age wing, and still have that going on. So one thing that you can do is grab Military Wing as you go up to Imperial, and once you have the resources, grab the Trade Wing and start setting up your trade. Obviously, having trade here with the Abbasids is going to be a spectacular source of gold, so there's nothing to be ashamed of doing that. In fact, given how little their map control is, I think that's something that you can really justify. You see, this gold mine is quite exposed. On the north, Wham is going for some trench warfare strategies, going with multiple keeps. In fact, his keep up front here is the Berkshire Palace, grabbing some siege weapons as well. So he wants to blast his way through these walls, potentially, and try to push the base of Bacti. Sacred Site being captured right now by the Imam MZ Shady. And as we speak, we have a bombard that's quite exposed here for Bacti. No one really seems to care about that bombard being just completely exposed to the Horsemen, so that's going to be a very expensive siege weapon taken down by Wham's forces. Fire Lancers increasing in numbers right now for Cool, and we also have quite a few of them moving north, so Cool's Fire Lancer numbers are looking really good. It's 67. Didn't expect him to have that much on the battlefield. He's up to Imperial Age, and now those are elite, and suddenly this is looking ugly for Wham's team, because that many Fire Lancers can charge in here and just destroy all those buildings in a matter of seconds. In fact, you could already see some gold miners getting massacred. You really need the Abbasid Spearmen on the battlefield now, because one thing that we haven't talked about yet is why Abbasids. And the answer is basically Spearmen. Abbasid Spearmen are quite powerful, and they are not bugged when it comes to their brace ability, so they're able to brace against the Fire Lancers, and they perform quite well against them. Fire Lancers just burning down all of those key buildings out there in a matter of seconds, also taking down the majority of these vills. It's a very nice counterattack by Cool. And as things stand, Cool is already pushing up with a tower in here. We also have a Trebuchet moving up for ACCM. They're about to blast their way through these. Fire Lancers, though, from Poppy Paw moving in to the left side, and they're trying to take down these buildings, making the siege weapons, delaying that push as much as possible. Stone walls are up here, so you won't be able to break through that with the Fire Lancers, but that's going to be a very sad moment for all those villagers getting slaughtered by the Fire Lancers. So that's going to be quite a few vills down. Notably, there are some longbows and some bombards pushing the base of Bacti here, something that he's going to have to address at some point. Fire Lancers taking down the key buildings here from ACCM now, so it's going to be a little more difficult for the Vietnam Legends to reinforce the battlefield right now. We have Cool going up to the Ming Dynasty as we speak with the Great Wall Gatehouse. He has tons of resources, so he can do that, and of course that's going to give an HP advantage to his Fire Lancers, but of course that's also a big resource investment. Town Center coming up even for Cool here, trying to get some gold for himself. Right now, the walls are still standing strong. Villagers are derping out a tiny bit here for Poppy Paw. On the right side, though, we have a quite sizable force coming in now from Wham. And with that overchop being out there, Wham could just run in there as well. Oh boy. that's a problem for Bhakti, because that many bombards could take down his landmarks very fast. You see, most of those landmarks are rather close to each other. So Ragnitz Cathedral, Town Center, Aachen Chapel, Palace of Swabia. If Vam makes a good push happen here, he could just knock out the yellow player from this game in a matter of seconds. Fire Lancers from Cool, cleaning up quite a lot of buildings on the right side though, so reinforcing that army for Vam is going to be a bit of a challenge. But he still has dozens of forward buildings over here, like 8 archer ranges, and of course quite a lot of stables. He is already knocking down the initial town center from Bhakti. On the left side, the walls are still standing strong, and now Bhakti is in trouble. So he's gonna need his teammates to help out. You see Fire Lancers being squeezed through that wall over there. This is something that Vam wanted to wall off, and if he is successful walling off those positions with those stone walls, the Fire Lancers won't be able to do much. Knights are now coming out though for Bhakti, and at this point he's mostly up against just longbowmen and some horsemen, so the elite knights should have no trouble cleaning these up. If there were some spearmen here, this would be a lot more worrisome right now. For Bhakti, looks like he's gonna be able to repel this attack. On the right side, we still have a sizable force of Fire Lancers for Cool. On the left, we also have some Fire Lancers for Poppy Paw. He is at 160 HP only, which is pretty low for Fire Lancers. Compare that to the Ming Dynasty fully upgraded Fire Lancers of Cool, that's already 208. It looks like we're seeing Camel Archers from MZ Shady. Not necessarily a massive fan of that idea, simply because the Camel Archers, while they're definitely very good at retaining their value, the biggest problem with them is that they're not directly a counter to Fire Lancers, and just one good charge from the Fire Lancers could wipe out that entire group of Camel Archers. Usually with the Abbasids, you like to see them using their Spearmen just so that they have a good answer to the Fire Lancers, and you see, Camel Archers, the moment they turn back to fight, the Fire Lancers will charge on them and they will just get massacred, so this is not a fight that you want to take if you're MZ Shady. Fire Lancers clashing into each other on the left side. On the right, looks like all those archers are getting cleaned up, and now the bombards of Bhakti are moving up, ready to take down these production buildings. On the left side, we still have a bit of a stalemate. Fire Lancers charging in from Poppy Paw to even things out. As things stand, this keep is still standing, but it's about to get taken down by these bombards. Bombards will trade shots as the Fire Lancers move in to take the kill. Looks like Cool is going to need some more forces on this side, because this forward is collapsing as we speak. On the right side, though, they have a huge force of knights coming in. These are fully upgraded knights for Bhakti, and if they get unleashed on top of this army, this could be quite worrisome for Vam. Vam is mostly going hand cannoneers, which can work very nicely if you have something in front of them. If you have spearmen in front, spearman hand cannoneer could be able to take good fights against all those knights, but with just hand cannoneers, you will get massacred. In the middle, a couple of villagers from Cool will get intercepted, will be sandwiched in between another force of Camel Archers. One thing I wanted to check while we have a couple of peaceful moments, or at least moderately peaceful moments, is the trade of MZ Shady. And I don't really see that much trade going on. He's got some markets going, but that's basically it. So having the trade wing going for him is not something that he has utilized just yet. He's just not grabbing the upgrades though, so he's going to get some nice trades set up over here. Fire Lancers once again clashing into each other, and that is just going to be an even trade. Now the Fire Lancers have 208 HP for both players. On the right side, Horseman Hand Cannoneer slowly pushing up. Rams also got a lot of artillery behind that. Fire Lancers, though, ready to take a charge, and the Fire Lancers can wipe out this entire army in a matter of seconds if they decide to charge upon them, which apparently they don't do. Okay, now they're coming in. Fire Lancers now jumping on the siege weapons. Quite a lot of them got slaughtered over here, and I think you would have been better off if you just jump on those hand cannoneers with the Fire Lancers. One charge and it wipes out that entire army, and that lets the spearmen kill the rest of these. Still, spearmen will be able to clean up the horsemen. Now you have the elite knights moving in. That many knights should be enough to take this, but of course Vam has the option to retreat behind the walls, even on top of the walls. And if he gets on top of the walls, he's going to get +2 range on those hand cannoneers as well, which is a pretty neat extra. You see, these bad boys now up there. So they're going to just tear apart all of those knights. They also do receive a range damage reduction when they're on top of the walls, but it's also a nice thing as well. Meanwhile, down south, you do have increasing amounts of purple Fire Lancers coming in, and you will see some Clock Tower Bombards crawling up. ACCM's army is mostly infantry right now, and without that many spearmen, he's able to repel the Fire Lancer charges, but of course, Camel Archers will make things a little more difficult. You see, Spearmen are bracing, which means that all of those Fire Lancer charges are cancelled, and that's exactly how you want to play against Fire Lancers. You need one player that has Spearmen that can brace, because that way you can nullify the charge. And the Fire Lancers are only dangerous when they charge in. If they are fighting head-on melee, they will get massacred. They're like light cavalry. But if they can charge in, that's where they become dangerous. So you want a Spearman that is capable of bracing. Speaking of bracing, on the right side, it looks like we have a very narrow choke point over here where those knights decided to take an engagement. And many of them got slaughtered over here, so not necessarily ideal for our yellow player, Bhakti. Of course, he's got a powerful economy with the Holy Roman Empire, so he's going to be able to recover quite fast. Fire Lancers now taking a keep down on the right side. As long as those stone walls are still intact, the Fire Lancers won't be able to break in, though. And that's the #1 rule of warfare in situations where Chinese are present. You need stone walls, because palisades will be burnt down by the Fire Lancers in seconds, but stone walls is not something that the Fire Lancers can do anything against. Looks like this forward here from Bhakti is going to get pushed by a couple of bombards. Those will be caught off guard, though. Bombards being taken down from Wham here quite nicely. Hand Cannoneers doing work, though. When you have some Spearmen in front, like you see right now, even though these guys are missing the elite upgrade, the Hand Cannoneers will perform really well. So Spearman Hand Cannoneer works very nicely over here, and Bhakti right now is struggling to find an answer to that. Is making more and more stables. Meanwhile, these Fire Lancers still seeking targets, but they're unable to acquire any. Down south, you see Poppy Paw is slowly crawling up with some more stone walls, securing this corner for themselves. A lot of stables making Fire Lancers, but he's not really utilizing his landmark, the Spirit Way. He actually has the Spirit Way empowering these stables, so that's definitely something that helps. But of course, on these stables, that discount doesn't apply, so looks like he has so many resources that doesn't really care about that. Just wants to flood out Fire Lancers as fast as possible. The walls were finished just in time for Poppy Paw, and that is going to help making sure those Fire Lancers can't break in. There is another batch on the right side, who has got a fairly sizable force of Fire Lancers at this point. And speaking of that, there is another batch up north here that just decided not to charge in. A single charge from these Fire Lancers would have wiped out all those Hand Cannoneers, and now you see that being a thing. Hand Cannoneers are fairly fragile, so a Fire Lancer charge can easily wipe them out, and that's exactly what you're seeing. The keep is gonna get taken down, though, by that Bombard, I do believe. Nope. Looks like the Bombard is getting pulled back before it gets killed. I think you could have taken one more shot, because it was almost guaranteed that the Bombard goes down anyways, and the castle was just one shot away from being destroyed. On the left side, ACCM is coming in with a couple of Spearmen, and that's going to just massacre all those Fire Lancers. This is why Mongols can be a very fun civilization to utilize here, because the Mongols will just flood Spearmen very effectively with that double training ability, so you are really able to respond to that Fire Lancer spam very nicely. Fire Lancers charging in, getting a lot of damage done on Vam's eco out there. Fire Lancers also clashing into each other as we speak. On the left side, in the middle, it looks like things are stabilizing, and slowly but surely Vietnam Legends is crawling ahead, I believe. Fire Lancers taking down key buildings on the right side, including stables that were supplying Fire Lancers, the front line on the right. As things stand, Vietnam Legends' goals are clear. They want to clean this forward up here, because this is very, very dangerous in front of their base. Rams are being pulled by ACC, and there is still the Berkshire Palace. Fire Lancers, though, slowly eating their way through these, and once you get in with the Fire Lancers, they can start taking down those buildings quite rapidly. Meanwhile, down south, you do have some raids going on. ACCM had the villagers out here, and those will be a tiny bit exposed. Quite a lot of towers out here to try and help against those Fire Lancers. Still just more Spearmen coming in, and really, the key thing here is that those Spearmen are capable of bracing. And with that, they cancel the charge of the opponent. A Wonder is coming in here for cool on the left side, and on the right side, I do believe there is gonna be a Wonder as well. Indeed, here it is. Poppy Paw is rushing up his Wonder on the right, and you're gonna have a Wonder coming up on the left side as well. It's gonna be a race for the Wonders. Both of them being constructed right now. Head-to-head are the two teams in that department. You have 44 villagers constructing it for purple, only 34 for cool. But of course, behind this one, Poppy Paw started a little later, and the two Wonders will be finished at the identical moment. 14:59 for both players. If you look at the notifications, it was Defend Cool's Wonder first. So the players right now are being told that Cool's Wonder was up a little faster. You cannot see the difference. Both Wonders were pretty much up at the same time according to the game, and this is something that's going to be very interesting to take a look at this point, because both sides right now have identical Wonder countdowns. The game with the notifications said that Cool's Wonder is up a little faster, so right now, if you're the players, you're suspecting that if the countdown goes to a completion, then Cool's team, Vietnam Legends, will win. Berkshire Pass now under attack up north. Now, of course, with both players or both teams having their Wonder with the identical timer, there is obviously a chance that either of these teams will just try to finish that game, because this could be very close. This could be very, very close. The only way that you can stop that countdown or pause it is by destroying the opponent's Wonder. As things stand, the Vietnam Legends are doing a pretty decent job pushing on all fronts. They're cleaning up this forward as we speak. The Berkshire Pass is now gone. The walls are still there, and that's going to prevent those bombards from being taken down, but now the Fire Lancers are slowly crawling up. They are about to take this entire forward up here. You see more and more Spearmen are being mixed in from MZ Shady though, and that is going to make things a little different. Because so far we haven't really seen a lot of Spearmen from them, and part of the reason why the Fire Lancers of Cool were so effective is because of the lack of Spearmen from the Abbasid mains. Fire Lancers now lacking their charge. They charged in from a very, very close distance, so they couldn't pop their explosive tips on their spears, but still fighting off most of those Fire Lancers. And you see, there is a bombard here for ACCM to try and blast through those walls. If you can blast your way through, you could jump on all of those cannon in a matter of seconds. Fire Lancers are still getting some raids going. Up north, you are going to see all of those production buildings slowly being ground down. Another reminder that the Wonder countdown is identical for both sides. Right now, bombards are still set up here for Poppy Pod. It's a very nice choke point for him to be in. Got multiple gates here, so the bombards are able to fire through those, as it looks like now the Abbasid Spearmen are joining the party here. You also get some men-at-arms going though for ACCM, so this should still be a decent fight for ACCM. And if you can get a nice charge in with the Fire Lancers on those camels, that could help a tiny bit. Still, now you have quite a lot of Fire Lancers coming in here, and ACCM's forces are consisting of more and more men-at-arms and less Spearmen. And having less Spearmen means that you're going to have a weaker chance of fighting off all of those Fire Lancers that are just now coming in trying to get some charges in on those gold miners. ACCM is definitely counting on this forward position for his gold income. They don't seem to have that much trade going on as we speak. Whereas on the other side, I saw some trade cards before from MZ Shady, so at least they do have some trade going. On the right side, it looks like this is a cleanup, so now the Vietnam Legends will focus their effort to the southern part of the map. As things stand, they are the ones pushing. So we still have 11 minutes until the Wonder victories. Of course, if they really want to make sure they win, they take down the opponent's Wonder, because while the countdown is identical and they got the notification first, you really don't want to push this to the final second, because that could be extremely dangerous. Right now, the cannon is going to get taken down over here by the Fire Lancers. Those will be cleaned up by the Spearmen thereafter. Looking at the forces of Bhakti, we're seeing more and more knights coming in. I think this is the moment where you start thinking about adding men-at-arms for the Holy Roman Empire player, though. Because you are seeing more and more infantry arrive on the battlefield from the Abbasids, and the appropriate response to that could be your own Spearmen and men-at-arms. Obviously, those won't perform that amazing against the opponent's Fire Lancers because the Holy Roman Empire Spearmen cannot brace, but it is still something that's gonna perform a little better against the opponent in general compared to just Knights now, especially against all those mass Spearmen. Fire Lancers were able to take down the majority of the wheels constructing that keep. That keep is gonna get taken down before it is even completed. Up north, as you see, these knights are not getting slaughtered by all of those spearmen, so you desperately need something that is a response to those spears. Bhakti's already adding his own spearman, and now he's chasing those villagers on the right side with the spears. As things stand, the Wonders are at a 10.5-minute countdown. On the right side, Vietnam Legends is slowly pushing, but the Camel Archers are now crawling up, and if you can keep the distance, they will tear apart all those spearmen. Right now, knights are also converging on the right side. As a keep is being built by Bhakti, it's almost completed, should go up, and if he has burning oil, he can get that out on top of those camels in the next couple of moments. He does not have boiling oil, so that opportunity is now gone, but most of the forces here from MZ Shady are cleaned up. On the left side, Fire Lancers are about to break through here because there are two Bombards that are just smashing their way through those walls. And on the left side, though, look at that firepower. 11 Clock Tower Bombards, 22 Fire Lancers, 4 Poppy Paw. And he also has 2 Nest of Bees over here, and he's pulling those Bombards back behind the walls the moment he has the option to do that. But there is the wall, and it was broken through, immediately rewalled by Poppy Paw though, so once again the Fire Lancers cannot break in there. The moment they break in, they'll be able to jump on all of those siege weapons. Notably, we do have Sacred Sites under the control of Poppy Paw's team. So there's a Sacred Site countdown going on, but that's not going to be relevant because the Sacred Site countdown is 10 minutes long, and we have entered the last 9 minutes of the Wonder Victory. So no matter what, you cannot undercut the Wonder Victory countdown with the Sacred Site victory, well, unless you destroy the opponent's Wonder, but that seems like a distant dream right now by Wham's team. Wham is moving up with a couple of Spearmen on the right side, doing quite a lot of damage to those gold miners. That's gonna hurt the gold income of Cool, and that's going to slow down the Fire Lancer production. Speaking of which, Fire Lancers now break through, going for this keep over here. Bombards will also set up, so say goodbye to that keep in all certainty. Now, Poppy Paw is going to have to relocate his forces to the right side over here. Fire Lancers are also moving in here, but they will meet with a lot of Spearmen and Camel Archers, so they are going to get cleaned up. Fire Lancers now coming in, taking down that one keep over here as they charge into the opponent's ones. ACCM not activate those cannon, and that could be a disaster because that could be free cannon being taken down. As things stand, we have 8 minutes on the Wonder countdown. Poppy Paw slowly taking down those Bombards, and the walls are also being rebuilt as we speak. So once again, these forces will be cut off from the main units of ACCM's team. The red line through the map is a trickle of Fire Lancers. Look at that. The Spirit Way is just affecting all 12 of these stables, and that's exactly the source of all those Fire Lancers. Cool though, lost quite a lot of gold miners, and right now he's only 5 on gold, 300 gold per minute only. That is basically 15 Fire Lancers, and if you look at this production, that's definitely more than 15 a minute. So Cool needs to find a way to get some gold for himself, but you see, the map is starting to run low on mineable gold, and this is where the trade could come into play. I saw some trade cards, and yeah, there they are. 458 gold per trip. That is brutal for MZ Shady. That's the Abbasid trade boom that you could have. He doesn't even have a ton of those, but MZ Shady's got like 2.6k gold, pretty much from trade cards exclusively. Yeah, he's got 3 gold miners, and he has banked up tons of resources. He's floating just an insane amount of res. Right now, if you look at the Wonder countdown, it is 7 minutes 9 seconds for both teams. Keep here from back T, he's gonna get taken down. Down south, you're going to have Fire Lancers now ready to charge in though, because these walls have been broken through. A couple of Springalds are also hitting the field for ACCM. And with the improved Roller Shadow Triggers upgrade, you could get 13 range on these. ACCM only has the standard one, so it's only 12 range. Still, Fire Lancers are able to jump on the siege weapons here. Now the Bombards are smacking that castle in the face. So this position is going to be lost by the Abbasid mains, but they are gaining ground on the right side as we speak. Bam, knocking down that keep over there, and with that, suddenly there is a chance for a counterattack on the far right side, and one thing that the far right still has is a lot of gold. So suddenly the gold income could be in trouble for Bacti's team. Bacti's not getting a lot of infantry going, but with that many hand cannoneers on the field, it's not going to perform that well. We're also seeing some Landsknechte hit the field, and with Landsknechte slaughtering all those men-at-arms, that could even things out, but if you cannot close the distance between you and those hand cannoneers, you're gonna be in trouble, because the Landsknechte, once they get close, with their area damage they do a lot, but they need to get close for that, and Bacti's population is dropping quite rapidly. He's at 161 only. His resources are also running low, and I feel like Vietnam legends have to start trading themselves. We're seeing some trade cards now appearing on the battlefield. 350 trade per trip for the Vietnamese team over here. Slowly but surely they're pushing on the south though. You see that never-ending flood of spearmen for ACCM. I think he could really benefit from a couple of forward production buildings, because he's using units that take a lot of walking time. You see, his infantry is walking all the way from here. Of course, he's making them close to the White Stupa, because this way he can just use the double training as much as possible and be resource efficient. But being able to reinforce the battlefield in crucial moments obviously is very important as well. Spearmen brace into all of those Fire Lancers, so that's a pretty decent fight for ACCM right now. Spearmen once again coming in, trying to isolate those Fire Lancers and prevent the Bombards from being taken down. Towers also coming in for ACCM, trying to expand the YAM speed network, so his infantry is going to get some additional mobility. Fire Lancers from the purple player jumping on the cannon. Looking at the Wonder Tracker, there's 4 minutes 49 seconds left, as we will have up north a counterattack coming in by Wham. Wham is looking really powerful here now, and with the support of those Camel Archers, he can really fight off anything that Bhakti is able to put up here. So this is one of those situations where it's a 2 versus 1 by ACCM and Cool down south versus Poppy Paw, and up north it's basically a 2 versus 1 between MZ Shady and Vam versus Bhakti, and both of those 2v1s are being won by the team that has the 2 players on that given battlefield. The concerning thing, I would say, for the Vietnam Legends here is that key parts of their economy, their gold income, their wood income, as you see over here for Bhakti, is exposed to that aggression, whereas on the other side, minimal economical damage is caused by these forces coming in here. Like you see, there are some purple villagers here that could be slaughtered by the Fire Lancers, but they just don't seem to care. This could have been a lot of kills out there on those villagers. Now those green forces pushing up is starting to get more and more worrisome for the Vietnam Legends, because as things stand, those bombards are about to blast their way through these walls, and suddenly the influx of Fire Lancers could be cut off over here if this choke point is denied. Meanwhile, Fire Lancers are now making their way into the base of Poppy Paw. 3 minutes 29 seconds remaining. I wonder if they are actually making a run for the Wonder. It looks like they were. It looks like they were making a run for the Wonder. So, to me, it feels like Cool's team is trying to kill that Wonder over here. Now, the game theoretically said that they have the Wonder up a little faster, because they got the notification to defend it first, as compared to attack the opponent's Wonder. So, theoretically speaking, their Wonder should be up a little faster than the opponent, but as I said, it's within a second. In fact, it's within a split second of completion, which means that it's next to impossible to determine who actually has the upper hand in here. Lanzknecht actually getting some very nice hits on that group of hand cannoneers. Still, hand cannoneers perform well against infantry. In fact, they are a direct counter to infantry. Fire Lancer is now ready to jump on those siege weapons though, so Cool is ready to repel this attack. It looks like the push inside the base of Poppy Paw was nullified. The Wonder still stands strong. ACCM and Cool though making steady progress towards that Wonder. Camel Archers will be relocated from the north all the way to the south, according to what we are seeing on the map right now. Spearmen will also join them. And those Fire Lancers, it looks like they're just coming in to try and clean up this forward. But of course, this will mean that you won't have that many Fire Lancers down here. So this battlefield won't be reinforced that much by Fire Lancers for the next couple of moments. Bombards will be exposed here to infantry, and that's going to be quite a lot of resources lost over there for Poppy Paw. He's got quite a lot of production over here on the left side, which could also be exposed to aggression. 1.5 minutes remaining from the Wonder countdown. Now you see a ton of Camel Archers out here, and when you have this many of them, they suddenly become an extremely powerful force in the battlefield. Up north, Fire Lancers still trying to take down these forward buildings, but as you see, Vam is holding out very steadily here. In fact, we're seeing Fire Lancers from Poppy Paw coming in here to try and push back. Those Fire Lancers over here, Bombards from green, will be taken down as Fire Lancers keep clashing into each other. Very strong forward position over here though. By Cool has multiple keeps up here. Just look at that, 3 keeps. He knows exactly that they need to make sure that that Wonder does not get taken down. And behind this one, infantry from Black Deep will clean up this forward as much as possible. Down south, you're going to have the army of MZ Shady slowly grinding down Vietnam's forces, and suddenly, if you look at the population, Black Deep is still at 200, ACCM 174, and Cool is at 163, whereas on the other side, Poppy Paw is at 162, MZ Shady is at 200, and Vam is at 99 only, so Vam's population is dropping quite dramatically. That's a bit of a shocker. His economy is still working nicely. He's got a nice gold trickle from the farming as well, but his population is disturbingly low. Only 63 villagers. I don't see a ton of trade cards for him, and not a lot of population either in military. Wonder countdowns getting into that 30-second mark. Unfortunately, this doesn't get updated every second. Every 5 seconds is the update there. But you see, it's still head-to-head, and it seems very, very unlikely that Poppy Paw or Cool would be losing their Wonder. And as things stand, it is Wonders within 1 second. And with that, You see different Poppy Paws Wonder popping out, which means that it is the Abbasid mains winning this game on a Wonder victory. Now, this is where I have to highlight that I was aware of this Wonder issue before I casted these recorded games, and the reason why is because technically I'm the host of the tournament. The admin stuff is dealt with by an admin, so he was the one that was reviewing these recorded games for a lot of time, because there were some questions raised. The two Wonders were finished within the exact same split second. You couldn't even pause the game in a moment, even when you slow down the game. You couldn't even pause the game in a moment where one team had it up faster. And the game said Abbasid mains won. However, as you could see in the in-game notifications, the game told both teams, this was observed by an admin, the game told both teams that the Vietnam Legends Wonder was up faster. As such, obviously both teams claimed that they should have had the victory. The Vietnamese team said, look, the game told us that we have our Wonder faster, and the Abbasid mains team said, basically, look, the game told us that we won. So ultimately, our admin was reviewing the Rex for something like 6 to 8 hours. He really spent like an entire day doing this, trying to figure out who actually won. And ultimately, the game comes out as inconclusive. He really wasn't able to figure out because both of the claims are true from both teams. So ultimately, the decision was that this game is going to be just considered a tie and it has to be replayed, which I'm fairly certain is going to spark some discussion, some debate, some controversy. But as weird as it sounds like, there was absolutely no way to tell if the Abbasid mains indeed won, because the two Wonders were finished in the exact same split second. The game has basically concluded in a way that the Abbasid mains have won. You can check that in the recordings. However, in-game, the Vietnam Legends got the notification that their Wonder was up a tiny bit faster. So, while obviously you could make cases for both sides, ultimately it was decided upon that the most fair way to deal with this one is that the game is just replayed because this game came out as inconclusive. Now, obviously, you could say, okay, why not give 1 point to each team? Because in that case, obviously, a best of 3 is just going to be completely destroyed. The idea with the best of 3 is that you always have one team that's winning, so you can't really have ties. Ultimately, it is a very weird decision. I'm not gonna lie, this is Age of Empires 4 history, because even if you wanted to, it would have been next to impossible to finish two Wonders in the exact same split second. Once again, I'm fairly certain that this is going to spark a tiny bit of a debate as well, and it wasn't even me making this decision. However, I think that this is the most fair thing that can be done. I don't think either of these teams really can 100% confirm that they won, simply because some signs point towards Abbasid mains winning, sometimes point towards Vietnam Legends winning, so the game pretty much comes out as inconclusive. And because of that, this game is going to be replayed. When you watch this full set, there are two options. This either comes out as part number 1 and you will see a part number 2, because they are yet to play the upcoming replay of this game and then potentially the decider game if there is any, or you will see this as a complete video, and in that case, we'll be jumping into game number 2 once again, rejuvenated. This obviously will still make it into the series because this is something that is just a 1 in a trillion chance. And I'm not gonna lie, it is fun from one aspect, and from another aspect, it is just crazy because what was the probability of two teams with different amount of villagers building a Wonder and finishing it in the very same split second? Like, the probability of that is basically next to 0. So with that being said, there is either going to be a second part to this set, or I will cut in the recording of the second part right after this session. So stay tuned, and you will see the second half of this set. Welcome back to Age of Empires 4 Pro League. ACCM back the end cool. Vietnam Legends versus the Abbasid mains. This is the set where the Hill and Dale game ended up being pretty much indecisive. Both sides claimed that they had the Wonder up faster. The admin was reviewing it for a long time, and ultimately there was no way to decide who actually had the wonder up faster and who is right and who is wrong. So the most reasonable thing to do seemed to be to just call it a tie and replay the game as it is. With that being said, we're jumping into Hill and Dale. Once again, on the right side, you're going to have ACCM in the pocket playing as the Blue Mongols. To the north of him, it is going to be Bakti's teammate playing as the Purple Holy Roman Empire. And down south, you're going to have Cool playing as the Yellow Chinese. Meanwhile, on the other side, you're going to have Team Abbasid mains. The colors are actually wrong on the overlay, so we'll have to fix that in a matter of moments, so hold on while that's gonna happen. MZ Shady is going to be playing in teal with the Abbasids. In the pocket, you're going to have Vamp playing as the English in red, and to the north, you're going to have one Poppy Paw playing as the Chinese in green. So the main difference between the two teams, as you see over here at the top left, is that you have a Mongols player for ACCM's team, whereas on the other side, you do have both an Abbasid and the English players. So very different civilizations picked for the two teams. The only similar civilization that they have is the Chinese. So hold on for a brief moment while the colors are being fixed. Hey, so we should be good now. The overlay will update in a matter of seconds. So far, it's mostly scouting going on in between the teams. Not a lot of aggression coming in from either side. Looking at the Mongol player, though, he's getting some scouts out. And with the Mongols, you always have to be mindful about the fact that you can go for a lot of aggression early on. This is unlike any other civilization on this map. The Mongols can put up Dark Age pressure, and they also have the ability to go for scouts, so they can get to the opposite side of the map really fast. And for this reason, their opponents always have to be on the lookout, because it's very likely that their wars won't be completed by the time those units arrive. Scouts now galloping through the map over here. As expected, the wars are not up yet for Vam's team, and when you look at that Mongol play, your ultimate goal is that you want to make sure that your opponents won't be able to wall up as fast, and that your opponent's team won't be able to build up their economy as fast as your teammates can. So the idea is that the Mongols player will try to delay 1, 2, potentially 3 players, and now you see an interesting combination of approaches over here. On the left side, you're going to have Vam coming in with a council hall that is being built right next to MZ Shady's base here. Interesting decision. We'll have to see what the idea is with this building. Obviously, with the council hall, you will be able to go for a couple of longbowmen, and that should be able to discourage a lot of aggression from those scouts. At this point, though, it is a bit of a question why you're building that right next to your teammate. So we'll have to see what MZ Shady has on his mind. Currently, he's not on stone, so it's possible that he's going to play a spearman opening, and then we'll just have MZ Shady and Vam going for a spearman plus longbowman opening. On the right side, we do have some walls coming in here for Cool. He's just about to finish those. And up north, Bakti was trying to wall up as well, but Papipo is bringing in the scouts, so that's going to be delayed. First couple of scouts now moving in for ACCM. He has managed to get quite a lot of sheep as well from the other side of the map, so he's going to get away with a few over there. As things stand, Bam's base is wide open. His gold mine is wide open, but I don't think that he has to sweat this that much. Even if that gold mine goes down, it's not the end of the world. Keep in mind that ACCM is spending a lot of resources on the Dark Age push, so losing that mining camp is probably not the end of the world for Vam just yet. Looks like ACCM scouts are heading towards the north, though, going for the Imperial Academy. Is Papipo up north. This mill being lost could be a little more concerning for Papipo, but it's rather close to his town center, so I think the town center should be able to discourage most of that aggression here from the scouts. You see a stone mine being built, though, and this is where things could get a little problematic for Green, because having that stone mine denied basically means that his 2 town center boom here is going to be slowed down quite considerably. He's forced to make a barracks, which is not something that you want to see with the Chinese. You just want to spend all your resources on that eco build-up. So having to make a barracks is not ideal, and now you see ACCM coming in with a tower. Denying that stone income would be terrible, terrible for Papipo over here. and currently doesn't have the forces to fight this. Luckily for him, he could supervise that barracks and make spearmen super fast, and that's exactly what he's doing right now. I think the tower is going up, but with sufficient amount of spearmen coming in here, you could take that down quite fast. This is going to delay Puppy Paw though. On the other side, longbows are coming in, and you also have some spearman support for MZ Shady, so as much as the green Chinese player is getting pushed over here, as we do have the spearman getting some beautiful hits on those scouts, scouts not able to kill that villager. So as those spears are getting some nice hits on those scouts, you see villagers are being pulled behind this. The idea is clear, you want to start mining stone and get as much stone as you can before that tower goes up. Spearmen were able to push away the scouts for the time being. There are backup stone mines all the way here, so you could think about just going over here if you are Puppy Paw, or even all the way at the back if you're really concerned. I don't think that he has to sweat this one this much. He could also prioritize gold and food a little more and do Song Dynasty before the second town center. I'm not saying that it's ideal, but in this situation, you will want to play 2 town center Song Dynasty boom. If you can't access stone, you might as well go for Song Dynasty first and then delay your second town center. At this point though, ACCM's Mongols are doing quite a lot of work over here, delaying Puppy Paw's eco build-up, as the spearmen are now coming out in larger numbers, so the second tower here on this stone mine should be impossible for ACCM. ACCM has scouted this area of the map, so he should know about that stone mine. Wouldn't be surprised to see him moving up that way. But on the right side, guess what? You have the longbows coming in, and you have the Abbasid spears coming in. This is a very scary combination to fight against. Pool is going to have to react with his own archer range, so ultimately, both Chinese players are being slowed down, but of course Cool still has access to a lot of stone, and he doesn't have to face towers in his face right now. So that's something to be considerate of. And it looks like ACCM is doing something that we haven't really seen the Mongol players do very often, but it's a very powerful build, and every time we saw it, it worked out well for the Mongols. He's going up with the silver tree, so we're going to see a trade boom from the Mongol player. Now, the risky thing here is that you're under a lot of pressure from the Abbasids and the English here, and since the Abbasids can make rams really fast, that could make things ugly. Isim is switching targets, and now he's heading towards Wham. Wham also wanted to go for a second town center here, so it's a clever idea to try and burn down that mining camp. That's going to potentially prevent Wham from adding a second TC. Indeed, he's just a little too low on the stone department. He's missing 14 stone. You could see those green spearmen being pulled to try and push away these forces, but at this point, ACCM is doing a great job pushing this mining camp, and you see, Vam is sending out vills. He just needs a tiny bit of stone. He's gonna try to mine that and just return it to the town center, while the mining camp is going down. On the right side, rams are already being built by MZ Shady though. Longbows will be able to get some nice hits on those archers though. This is where the ability with the Chinese to supervise the ranges comes into play, because you can reinforce this battle really fast if you are cool, whereas it's going to take a lot more time for your opponent, Wham, to bring up the longbows. So Cool should be able to hold this one with archers if he keeps supervising that archer range. Also going for a couple of defensive towers, has gotten the gunpowder slits on them. And oh my goodness, look at ACCM. He's dropping an Ovu on the stone of Puppy Paw. Oh my goodness, that's just crazy. And the thing is that with that Ovu, he can actually make double units right on the front line. I don't think that Puppy Paw was expecting that at all. Ram is now coming in. You probably want to garrison some of your units nearby, so the villagers can't just be pulled to kill the Ram. If they are being pulled, you can pop out and start picking them off. Longbows are doing a nice job keeping the distance between themselves and those archers that have lower range. As things stand, towers are being repaired, though a couple of villagers getting picked off from Cool. On the other side, you do have an archer range coming in, and now you see archers coming from ACCM, double training on that Ovu. There are multiple towers as well, harassing the base of Puppy Paw, who is going for the Barbican of the Sun right now. He has managed to get his second town center up, and he also has the Barbican of the Sun going for him. So his economy isn't going to be that terrible. In fact, if you look at Cool, Cool is still playing one town center, so as scary as that push is inside the base of Puppy Paw, it hasn't really been letting his eco back. And now, if you look at Cool, his base is under a ton of pressure right now. Defensive tower up now with the fortifications as well. That's going to make it much more difficult to take it down. But at this point, Wham just wants to pick off villagers, and he's doing that in a very nice fashion. Pool is down to 26 vills at this point. So, of course, this push is going to stall out, but the yellow Chinese player is at 26 vills. For your reference, Puppy Paw is at 36. So, our green Chinese player currently has one town center of a lead. And of course, Song Dynasty and 10 villagers. That's a pretty considerable lead if you ask me. Ultimately, this push stalls out, so now you'll have to change up your strategy if you are the Abbasid mains. ACCM has gotten a trading post in the corner. One of the disadvantages of this build right now for him is that the OVO is up here on the front. And what this basically means is that the trade cards cannot be double produced at this point, so it's only going to be single traders being popped out. It's still gonna be worth it though. We haven't talked about the Bhakti yet. He's been ferrying in the air all day, all night. He's already in Castle Age. So we could see some support coming in from potential knights. People pushed away from the stone mine for the time being. At this point, I don't think that he needs to sweat this that much, although his lumberjacks are not being denied. So he kind of needs to find a way to start taking down one or two towers over here, or get some help from his teammates. Looks like the archers and the scouts are now heading towards the base of Vam. Vam has gotten a second town center up as well, so that's going to help protecting his gold mine. But these lumberjacks are lying wide open over here, no defensive tower whatsoever. So all of those lumberjacks have to be pulled back. Town center is getting a couple of nice arrows out. That's going to be some scouts down, but ultimately the value is there for ACCM. 2 scouts going down, a third one should be able to survive. On the right side, this push is still doing damage to Cool though, so at this point it's gonna come down to the untouched players, because both Chinese players have been taking quite a lot of damage over here. You see Song Dynasty is just now on the way for Cool, so he's quite a bit behind compared to Puppy Paw still. On the other hand, this push is a lot scarier than this one over here. This one is pretty much dead, whereas this push is just now beginning. Now, if Puppy Paw finds a way to Castle Age, he could get some Palace Guards, some Nest of Bees out, and he's gonna have no trouble dealing with this. But he's a long way away from Castle Age. You got apparently 2 town centers over here for MZ Shady, as we're seeing some spearmen being sent all the way up north. Longbows are now also being dispatched. I think they're starting to feel that they need to do something about this right now. Ram already moving out, trying to get the barracks down. Sacred sites are also being captured by Bhakti though. Since they have the map control advantage as we speak, he's gonna be able to start picking up relics, and that's a problem right now for MZ Shady's team. They're just unable to deny relics right now from Bhakti, and because of that, the Holy Roman Empire player is already on the way to Imperial Age. Look at that. Bhakti is just now bringing in relic number 2, but he's already making the Palace of Swabia happen. Ram is now getting closer and closer to that town center. I don't think that you can push the TC just yet though, so that gives a little bit of time for the Abbasid mains. If we look at the Chinese player economies, it's 45 for Puppy Paw. Cool is at 29 still. Cool's eco is just super fragile. On the other hand, if you look at the resource income per mid for ACCM, that's slowly crawling up on the gold department. Bhakti's got 1100 with the Holy Roman Empire. I think the biggest winner of all of this fighting going on is Bhakti, because he has an untouched way picking up all the hunt with the Holy Roman Empire. He's the only player ferrying in there. And he also has a completely untouched way grabbing those relics. So really, it's not even the Chinese player of Vietnam Legends that's benefiting from the opponent's Chinese player being set back quite a bit. It's the HRE player that's really the biggest winner of this one. Now you have 3 battering rams moving in. Longbows will try their best to focus down the scouts. Nice idea from Puppy Paw to have some spearmen inside that town center, so when the scouts pop out, you can jump on them. Town center though, under a lot of pressure, spearmen now pop out, getting some nice hits on top of those horsemen. But now you see some knights arriving, and as I said before, part of the reason why this map could be tricky to play against Mongols is because the Mongols are good with early aggression, and once the Mongols start pushing you, you won't be able to wall. And one thing that we could see here from Bhakti is a ton of early Imperial Age units here, because he's already an Imperial. We could even see a Bombard crawling up any moment, because he's got the technology for that. The starting town center of Puppy Paw is under a lot of pressure over here. Bhakti already an Imperial. Vam is up to castle, so he's gonna get veteran longbowman very soon, but that won't deal with all these knights. And I feel like at the beginning, Puppy Paw was fine against this push, but then ACCM just turned up the gear. It was very risky to place an OVU on the opponent's stone mine, but it has paid off because now he's able to reinforce the battlefield like no one else can. And now you see a fairly sizable force of archers over here. Veteran longbows will help against this one, but you see that now Puppy Paw is being set back quite heavily. Pool is still not possessing a spectacular villager count, but Puppy Paw as the Chinese player also has been delayed very heavily now. In the middle, you still have a double town center boom for the English player, now with a 3rd town center with the King's Palace. So the other 2 players, Vam and MZ Shady, are fine, but Puppy Paw is losing a lot of ground over here. The Imperial Academy is on fire. Of course, every building set on fire for ACCM is also going to provide him resources. No veteran longbow still for Vam. He's trying his best to keep distance, and now that's the final landmark. the Barbican of the Sun. If that goes down, it is game over, and you're going to have Poppy Paw eliminated, and I don't think that you can win this game 2 versus 3. So you must do everything you can if you are Poppy Paw's team to make sure that that Barbican of the Sun isn't going down, but that's going to be difficult. We're seeing some horsemen hit the field here from green. In fact, he's got multiple supervised stables. It is, however, elite knights on the way for Bacti, and those elite knights will just run past all of that town center and Barbican of the Sunfire. So far, no repairs from Poppy Paw either, and it's getting worrisome. That's the last landmark, and he should know that. Now, if he manages to get a sneaky landmark behind this one, like a clock tower all the way at the back, he can save himself. However, now you see that he's panicking, he's pulling all the villagers, he's realizing that he needs to save that landmark. He needs to repair at this point. He needs to repair and let those spearmen deal with the rams. You can't really send your villagers in to burn down the rams, because if you do, then the landmark is just going to go down to the remaining rams over here. Villagers have been picked apart by the archers. As things stand, the Khan might get picked off from ACCM, and now I have a decent force of longbows here though, so they should be able to trade quite nicely against those archers. Rams still there though, 2 rams remaining, and the horsemen are just getting decimated. Now longbows are being pushed back. Some teal knights arrive on the battlefield though for MZ Shady, and those could be lifesavers at this point, because without those, it would have been very, very difficult to push away this ram aggression. Looks like you're going to have this attack repelled though. The question is how alive MZ Shady is. Well, he's alive at the south, but Poppy Paw taking a severe beating. 58 villagers, as compared to Cool having 73 though. So now Cool is decisively ahead. Notably, as I said, Bacti has been collecting relics all day, all night, and as I said, he's the beneficiary of all this fighting going on. He has been on 3 relics on the Regnitz Cathedral, 2 more in the monastery. He's in Imperial Age grabbing biology, and he's also possessing 1 sacred site, taking another one down south. So all that map control advantage for Bacti is now translating into a massive influx of gold from the relics and from the knights. And now, I just feel like that technology advantage is exactly what we're seeing. Poppy Paw is a long way away from recovery, but the biggest problem that you're facing right now is that you have knights running into your eco. It's not even the fact that these are Imperial Age knights, it's the fact that there are units running into your eco. That's the big difference between the 2 teams, because ACCM's eco is very safe, so is the eco of his teammates, and you see a Kurota is being pulled by ACCM, so he didn't even age up with the step red up. He's going with the Kurota so he can heal up his army. Once again, the ram is knocking on that Barbican of the Sun, and now you have 2 Mangonels as well for ACCM. I think the story of this game is ACCM being able to make this forward aggression happen. Mongols are a powerful civilization, but you really gotta make sure that you don't stall out with this push, because if you do, you won't be a factor in the game for a long time. I also loved how he has added a lot of trade here, even though they're not particularly effective, 60 gold per trip only, so you see, his gold income isn't necessarily spectacular. One thing that he's able to do is pressure the base of the Chinese player, and that's the role of the Mongols over here, being able to delay at least 1 player, but preferably 2. That's exactly what we have seen, and the difference really was that both sides tried to go for some aggression on this map. For the Abbasid mains, it was Bam and MZ Shady going for the Spearman plus Longbowman push, whereas on the other side, ACCM went with the Mongols. Ultimately, what decided things is that yellow player, Cool, was very well prepared for that aggression. He had multiple towers set up, he had an archer range popping out archers already, so by the time the archers and spearmen arrived from the Abbasid mains, you already had the response ready from Cool. Whereas on the other side, you could see that Poppy Paw was caught off guard by that aggression from ACCM, and ultimately, he had a hard time reacting to it. He stalled it out for some time, but then he started booming. He wasn't in Castle Age. I think in that situation, you could have maybe justified trying to go for Castle Age, maybe even with a sling, because if he gets to Castle, he could have gotten Palace Guards and Nest of Bees out quite fast, and that would have been enough to clean up that forward, and if they clean up that forward, they can still wall up. It's a difficult scenario, though, because the main reason of having Mongols over here is exactly to make sure that you pressure your opponent, and, well, of course, many could say, hey, Mongols are super powerful. That's 100% true. But part of the reason why the Vietnam Legends could pick Mongols here is because they didn't do that in game number 1. So, obviously, they didn't pick Mongols in game number 1. They pick it now, so they will have that working for them. Now we're going to game number 3, and we're going into a decider game. Game number 1 was won by the Abbasid mains. Game number 2, we basically had to tie, and then the most fair thing seemed to be to just replay the game simply because there was no way to decide in a convincing fashion who won. Of course, anyone can make their claims, but ultimately, both sides, both teams were claiming that they won for various reasons, and those reasons were completely justified. So those weren't just random reasons thrown in, those were reasonable reasonings from these teams, and for that reason, ultimately, the game was just inconclusive, and because of that, we had a second edition in which Vietnam Legends won quite convincingly. So now we're going to the home map of the Abbasid Mains, because we haven't talked about this one. This was the home map of Vietnam Legends. Now, Abbasid Mains picking an open land map, something that they won in game number 1. Arabia was in their hands. Looking at the civilizations though, we also won't have Mongols available for Vietnam Legends. We will have MZ Shady picking the French, Poppy Paw playing, and Vam is going to be playing Mongols, whereas on the other side you will have French, Rus, and English. So the only difference here is that you're going to have English as opposed to Mongols. From what we have seen so far in this tournament, Mongols seem to be the better choice, or the more powerful choice over here, simply because lack of mobility is something that could haunt the English for a long time. With that being said, I welcome you to game number 3 over here. It is going to be blue, red, and yellow versus teal, green, and purple. So once again, the overlay has to be adjusted over here. But we are ready to go, and we will have on the north, in the pocket, Cool playing as the English in blue. That's a little surprising having him in the pocket with the English. On the flank, you're going to have Bakhti playing as the red Rus, and on the left side, you're going to have ACCM playing as the yellow French. Very surprising that we're seeing the least mobile civilization being the pocket. Now, you could think about this in many ways, but maybe the idea is that if he's in the middle, that means that he is not far away from either of his teammates. If he was on the left flank, let's say, him getting to the right flank would take a lot of time. But if he's in the pocket, his army is, let's say, over here in front of his base, he can reinforce either of his teammates a little easier as compared to being on the flank. So that could be the reasoning behind picking English for the pocket. Meanwhile, on the other side, the pocket is going to be MZ Shady playing as the green French. To the left, you're going to have Poppy Paw playing as the purple Rus. And last but not least, you're going to have teal Mongols for Vam. So, looking at the civilizations, the first thing that you're always asking yourself is, of course, what can the Mongols do in Dark Age? And we're seeing some scouts coming out. They're up against the Rus players, so doing a lot of damage here at the beginning is quite difficult. And you might even retarget yourself trying to hit the French player on the left side. The French player, ACCM, has a nice gold mine at the back, so that's going to be difficult to harass. Looking at Cool so far, he's playing a very standard English opening. We have 2 on gold. He is pretty heavy on lumberjacking though, going for an early mill, so we're going to see some farms coming out from him. On the right side, Bakhti is playing the Rus, looking at his bounties at 95 only. Not spectacular, but he's just now bringing in 2 wolves, so that's going to give him 50. Whereas on the other side, looking at the other Rus player, Poppy Paw, is going to have a 95 bounty as well. If he brings in a couple of wolves, he should be fine. So, one major difference between Highview and Arabia is that you have a ton of stealth forests over here, way more than what you have on Arabia. And this makes players with slow armies extremely vulnerable, because you never know what's coming at you. Any moment in this game, an army could pop out of the shadows and just jump on your forces, and that is particularly dangerous when you have a slow-moving army, like the English player. So that's the biggest question mark here. How can the English player utilize their army when they do lack mobility? And on the opposing side, you do have all 3 civilizations with mobility. Oftentimes you see the Mongols play Lancers, supported by heavy cavalry from the French, and of course the horse archers from the Rus, as opposed to what will be longbowmen eventually from Cool. Cool, already doing some farming over here, grabbing wheelbarrow as well, so he's not really rushing that feudal age whatsoever. Makes me wonder if we're even going to see a fast castle style approach here from him. It would be an intriguing build to see fast castle from Cool, if you think about it. He could age up with the King's Palace and he would have 2 town centers, and then he could do something like Knights. It would be a cheesy approach, but it could potentially work, because the Knights will be a powerful unit for him to work with. He would have 2 town centers, and of course, behind that one he would have the English farming eco, And it's not like you're encountering a ton of spearmen, so having a knights out is something that he could work with for a long time. Would be quite unconventional, but I'm not saying it's impossible. Papi Paw's got some scouts on the right side. He's ferrying in there as we speak, as we do have a Vam moving up with the scouts, getting some harassment done on Cool's gold mines. As you see, Cool is delaying that feudal age quite a bit. He's been farming for a long time. Here comes the council hall. That will be your choice of a landmark no matter what. He's rushing it up with 6. People right now at 260 bounty only. On the other side, you do have Bakti with 335. So Bakti has had a slightly better start when it comes to collecting bounty. On this map, with the amount of predators you have though, you definitely want to get to quite a lot of hunt. And look at this. ACCM has 3 wolves trailing his scout. Ideally, he would bring those to his teammate's town center without touching his own. Because if he gets into the range of his own town center, that's going to kill the wolves. So you want to bring these to Bakti because that's 75 gold for your teammate. You're going to have 25 gold picked up here as well. As you see, Vam scouts are now moving in. And it looks like they could pick off the wolves right now if they really want to. And I think that's the right thing to do. At this point, it is either Bakti taking those or no one in terms of gold income. So it's very unlikely that Papi Paw could take them. So the best thing you can do is take those down so your opponent's Rus player isn't able to grab them. And you see ACCM in the end, he's going to have all 3 of those killed. But none of those fell into the hands of Bakti, and that's massive value there for Papi Paw and his team. Simply because that would have been 75 gold for Bakti, who is already at 390, so he has a pretty decent gold bank from that. Whereas on the other side, if you look at Papi Paw, he's at 345, so not much behind anymore. Those Steel Scouts have been pretty active. Bam, still in Dark Age, but now there are some Knights from ACCM, so there should be minimal aggression from those Scouts. And it's possible that we're going to see professional scouts added now by Wham, because he likely has the resources for it, and he's probably going to be able to utilize those scouts that way. See if he's going for that upgrade. Looking at his resource bank, he is just now grabbing professional scouts indeed. He's got a bunch of leftover scouts, so that makes a ton of sense for him. Meanwhile, we haven't talked about the Cool just yet. Looks like he's massing longbows. His build order here is very weird though, not something that you see conventionally. Very heavy on the farming department. Now he doesn't have a lot of sheep to work with, so this could just be a reaction to the low amount of sheep he has. Although you could still have your Rus teammate ferry in deer for you. So I feel like this was pre-planned to go this heavy on the farming department. If you look at the food eco, it's not looking bad. 430 with only a handful of villagers on food. That is something that Cool has to be satisfied with. And of course, this also means that there is more hunt and sheep left over to your teammates. We could even send your own sheep over to the side of ACCM. We got one knight coming in from MZ Shady harassing ACCM. ACCM is going for wheelbarrow and he's gotten professional scouts as well. On the other side, you do not have professional scouts for MZ Shady. So that's the first big difference between the 2 French players. You do have one that is going pro scouts, the other one is not. So that means that MZ Shady is going to have better knight numbers on the battlefield, because he has been spending his time making knights all day, all night. Professional scouts now completed for Vam as well. So there are a lot of players fighting for those carcasses. You have 2 Rus players, 1 Mongol player, and 1 French player, all battling it out for those carcasses. Those will be depleted really soon. Sometimes you see only 1 or 2 players going for the carcasses, but when you have 4 of them going out, there isn't really that much that each player can pick up. So you're likely going to secure yours and maybe some from the opponent, and that's it. Looks like the Vietnamese team is going for some walls in between the players. Kind of like those approaches, because that's going to limit the movement of the opponent for the time being. Looks like Castle Age is not coming in yet for Papi Paw. He's building archer ranges though. He's probably waiting for the gold to pile up. Indeed, in fact, he's waiting for the food. He already has the gold, but that's just the order of the transactions. So he should be able to get that landmark up very soon. Meanwhile, though, Bakti had a slightly more balanced eco, and because of that, the Abbey of the Trinity is already being constructed. Knights coming in from ACCM, getting 1 villager kill inside the eco of MZ Shady. Nice low value there, that 1 knight. And it looks like the biggest difference between the 2 teams will be that Bakti is reaching Castle Age a lot faster than his opponent, although Papi Paw is rushing up that Abbey of the Trinity with 8 villagers, so he won't be that much behind. As things stand, you do have a decent force of archers now in for Cool. I'm curious to see how his economy is going to fare over here. As things stand, he's going heavy on the stone department, so he wants a second town center. This means that he's going to be spending a lot of time in feudal age for the time being. ACCM charging in on the berry villagers, won't get a single kill, he's going to lose his scout instead. And now you see Wham is just bringing in all the food to his town center. He could actually have left a couple of carcasses to his teammate, because you see MZ Shade is running low on food. So you could justify leaving 1 or 2 carcasses there for your teammate. But instead, of course, this is going to boost the economy of Wham, who, being Mongols and really not making any army here, should be getting close to Castle Age. If you look at Wham's resources, indeed, he's about to click up to Castle Age with the Step Redoubt. That's a very nice Castle Age timing if you consider the fact that your Rus teammate has just now reached Castle. You already have Warrior Monks coming out now for both Rus players. You have one out already for Bhakti as he's moving up for the relics on the left side. Slowly but surely, Pool is creeping up with the longbows, but he has to be careful because there is a big ball of knights lurking, trying to intercept his army. And this is what I was talking about. You never know what's coming at you from those stealth forests, and that's exactly what you want to avoid here. For Cool, he's deploying the palings, but it's a little too late now. The knights are just smacking all those longbowmen in the face. With longbows moving though, the knights actually run into the palings, but as you see, minimal damage is caused by those palings, and ultimately, you're going to see 6-7 longbowmen being picked off here. Now that the yellow knights come in to reinforce, things are gonna get evened out, although the horse archers will join the party to try and swing this in the favor of the Abbasid mains. Looks like the knights are just taking their day off, as the majority of the damage will be tanked by the scouts over here. But now this is a 2 versus 2, with the longbows not really being able to do that much against the knights. They're trying to focus down the horse archers. As things stand, all those longbows will be taken down, and now the horse archers can run away from the knights. This is a win for the Abbasid mains on this left side over here. Quite decisive, in fact. They're able to take down that army from Cool. Notably, Cool is on second town center now, and he's got a very good farming eco, so that's something that's worth keep monitoring in the long run. You also have Bhakti taking some sacred sites all across the map. As things stand, he's got 1 relic. On the other side, not a single relic yet for Puppy Paw, so Bhakti is a little bit ahead on the relic department. And now you see some towers creeping up here for Cool. He wants to expand his network of castles bonus, and of course, he's going to get some vision into those stealth forests. Something very similar is done here by Wham, though. He's expanding his Yam network, and now you see Lancers moving all the way to the north. You have Castle Age for Puppy Paw and Wham as well, whereas there's only 1 Castle Age player for Vietnam Legends, and that is Bhakti. So 2 versus 1 are the Castle Age players, and that could be a power spike that can be exploited by the Abbasid mains. Knights, looks like they are going for Bhakti here. Bhakti's got some horse archers back at home, but it might be difficult to defend against that many Lancers over here. And the fact that the Lancers are pushing your base will force you to stay at home with the horse archers, and that gives a window for Puppy Paw to potentially go for a kill on ACCM. ACCM going for a lot of defensive towers all across his eco. He knows exactly that when those horse archers come in, you want to be able to jump into towers. In the middle, some knights and the horse archers will intercept the scout, as the Lancers from Wham will be repelled by the forces of Bhakti. Bhakti's got professional scouts still working and faring in the air, so he's been active on the map for a long time. Castle Age, not in for free players still. A lot of stuff going on all around the map. You still have some carcasses lying around, as the longbows will now get some nice shots on those Lancers. Bam is trying to find something to kill with those, but so far he has found minimal success, and ultimately those Lancers will go down. And the big thing though is that you still have a pretty decent amount of scouts, and I think some Lancers nearby as well, even some crossbows hitting the field for Wham, so he's preparing a push against the base of Bhakti, although crossbows won't fare well against the horse archers. Once you got some heavy cavalry on the battlefield though from ACCM, those crossbows will start becoming a factor, so if you have something in front of those crossbows, they're a very good auxiliary unit into this army. As things stand, we have 3 relics for Puppy Paw, and for Bhakti, he's only at 2, so Puppy Paw has taken over in the relic department, but Bhakti is building a monastery, which is a sign that he's bringing in multiple relics here. As things stand, Puppy Paw with the best food income. Cool though, head-to-head with that Rus player. As I said, who has been booming on that farming eco for a long time, so don't sleep on that guy. He's been on 2 town centers, so behind this one, you have a 69 population, nice for Cool. 53 villagers is probably the biggest highlight over there, though. On the right side, Wham is trying to crawl up with some towers over here. This will deny one of the gold mines available, Bhakti, but of course, being Rus, he doesn't need to mine any gold if he's just going for horse archers. And now you see Cool going up with the White Tower. This is something that you see when the Rus players or the English players go for a 2 town center play, as ACCM is charging into the base of MZ Shady. MZ Shady is in Castle Age, so he's gonna have the veteran Royal Knights fighting off these Feudal Age Royal Knights over here. Only ACCM and Cool are still in Feudal Age, but Cool is almost up. So when you have 2 town centers, for the English player, you usually see them going for the White Tower, although in this case I think you could justify the King's Palace because I'm not sure if you really need that castle. Second EC up north coming up for Backty as ACCM's forces are getting repelled. Now it's a scary force of horse archers for Poppy Paw as Cool gets to Castle Age. On the right side you have a sneaky Mangonel here in the Stealth Forest, and this is what I was referring to. If you look at the POV of Backty, he's got no idea where he's running. And this is where it can get very ugly. You could easily get caught off guard by those Mangonels, and if your army didn't have mobility like Longbowmen, that could even be nastier. So Castle Age for MZ Shady was built up with the Guild Hole, which means that he won't be able to grab Royal Bloodlines in Castle Age. On the other side for ACCM, looks like he's still in Feudal Age and he remains in there for some more time. Backty currently sitting on 4 relics. On the opposing side, you do have 4 relics as well for Poppy Paw, so that even are the Rus players on the relic department. Mangonel's not getting some nice volleys out here. Many horse archers fell prey to that volley, so you gotta be very careful here if you're Backty. He's got the warrior monks here to heal, but it's going to take quite a lot of time to get those healed. As things stand, horse archers are moving up from Poppy Paw. He doesn't have the HP upgrade just yet. On the other side, you already have that for Backty, so those horse archers from our red player are slightly stronger than the ones from purple. And numbers also seem to be slightly more convincing. You got a lot of crossbows here for Wham, which could be great against heavy cavalry, but they will struggle against longbows, they will struggle against the horse archers, so really the only thing that the crossbows can do is help out against knights, potentially. This is not a fight that Poppy Paw wants to take unless the Mangonels get some nice hits in, but if the Mangonels can get some nice shots, it could easily wipe out the forces of Backty. 4 Mangonels setting up and they're targeting the town center. You gotta be really careful if you're trying to fight all those Mangonels. A Springald is popping out for Cool. Remember, he can make Springolds on that keep, so that is definitely an advantage for him. 1 Mangonel gets picked off. Horse archers, though, taking down that Springald. Now Ram is finished, and now you see archer ranges being set on fire by Ram. All of the fighting right now is going on inside the base of Backty. HP upgrade now in for Poppy Paw, so despite his numbers are being slightly lower, with the Mangonel support, he could take some good fights, and now you see Vam is cleaning up buildings over here. Backty is in trouble. ACCM just reached Castle Age here. I'm curious if he went with the other landmark, indeed the Royal Institute. This could be a difference maker. If he goes for Royal Bloodlines and they can take a fight with that, that could be massive. Still, looks like MZ Shady's Knights aren't charging on the Longbowmen up until now. You really gotta be careful with your units though, because right now you don't have Mangonel support, so I don't think I like this fight for MZ Shady's team. They went a little too far away from those Mangonels, and now you see Backty is pulling scouts to try and fight all those Mangonels. Scouts being very, very cheap. Torch units, those could take down the Mangonels, but you see the reaction is very nice from Vam's team. Cutting off the influx of those Mangonels. Now you see Springolds now coming up. It will be traded off by Wham's forces. Backty has lost some archer ranges, so him replenishing that army is going to be more and more difficult at this point. Now the Mangonels are setting up, trying to push away those longbows. All the forces from Wham's team are converging upon one location, Backty's base. They want to knock out Backty of this game. It is 1-1 right now. So the winning team moves into the quarterfinals. Mangonel fire once again coming in. And now Backty is taking a ton of damage on those horse archers. It's starting to get a little scary, I think, for Vietnam Legends. Knights now arriving from ACCM. No HP upgrade on them just yet. Mangonel is once again setting up. And those could be some beautiful volleys on the longbowmen. Even with the longbows being split up, you do quite a lot of damage over here. Heavily damaged army right now for Backty. And there are still 4 Mangonels on the battlefield. Some more Springolds are being mixed in by Wham, so they can snipe the Springolds coming in from Cool. Some Knights now charging from ACCM. Everywhere else on the map we have minimal engagements going on, although ACCM launches a counterattack inside the base of Wham, and that's going to cause some idle time. But most of the action right now is in the base of Backty. Backty trying to heal up his horse archers. He desperately needs to do that, because with how damaged those horse archers are, the next volley of Mangonel fire could easily knock them out. Springold setting up here for Cool, getting some nice shots on those from Wham. Wham hasn't reacted to that just yet. Now you see Horse Archers getting some nice hits on ACCM's heavy cavalry here. Longbows setting up though to try and pick off some of the Horse Archers. Vam still has a ton of crossbowmen, but those haven't done much so far. Mangonels now moving up though, and you see with the Springolds being taken down from Cool, he isn't really able to take down those Mangonels up until now. Still, this keep is going to hold off this angle, and now you see more and more knights trickling in for both French players. As things stand, still no HP upgrade though for ACCM. Bacti will live to see another day though, and that's something that's worth mentioning. Raids from ACCM still inside the base of Vam here, quite impactful. Vam is at 51 villagers, so he's been losing some over the course of this game, and those knights are really doing work here. A little bit of a slow reaction here by Vam, and really, that could be the difference maker. Because so far ACCM has been slaughtering villagers here for Vam, even with all the town center and tower fire, those knights will go down quite slowly, so you can really just sacrifice those knights if you're ACCM, trade them off to villagers, because you're going to impact the opponent's economy a lot. A couple of moments ago it was like 50s in the villager count, now it's only 40s, and suddenly it starts to become scary for Vam, especially if you consider something. Who has been completely untouched with his boom, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him getting into Imperial Age in the foreseeable future. Finally, those knights are getting cleaned up, but they did just so much damage out there. The Rus players, Papipo is definitely ahead of Bacti. The French players, right now, I think MZ Shade is a bit ahead. He's actually floating 1500 food in the guild hall. But once ACCM grabs the Royal Bloodlines upgrade, which has just now finished, suddenly his knights will be way better than those green knights. And those are the times where you want to take those fights. If MZ Shady is allowed to get away with those lower HP scouts compared to the yellow ones, he's going to leverage the fact that he's got the guild hall and get to Imperial and just beat you to that upgrade. Now big fight coming in here, Horse Archers moving in, and it looks like Vam's forces were a little bit caught off guard here. Mangonels will be sniped down by all those Springolds, and I don't think the Abbasid mains were prepared for such a big counterattack here, especially the 5 Springolds setting up was the massive decision maker here, because if you look at this, 5 Springolds, snipe down all the Mangonels, and now suddenly you don't have anything against all those red Horse Archers, and with longbow support, the purple Horse Archers are being pushed back. Of course, ACCM's cavalry now being very tanky at 300 HP help quite a bit as well, so this is the type of fight that you want to take if you're ACCM. You have the better HP on your knights, you have to use that, because if you don't use it, your opponent will leverage the guild hall, and you see there's 2000 food in that bad boy, so MZ Shady could pop that anytime, get to Imperial Age, and then suddenly have elite knights with royal bloodlines completely smashing your forces in the face. Back in ACCM now, coming in with a full counterattack. They're looking for that group of Horse Archers, but it's very difficult to find those in those stealth forests, especially if you don't have any scouts mixed into your army. So you see, they're pretty much pushing blind. That's also a risk. You could have some Mangonels ambushing you any moment, but it looks like they are heading towards the Mongols player. Up north, though, disaster strikes Bacti, so as much as Vam was losing villagers to the raids of ACCM, Vam is now coming in with what is only 3 Lancers, but it is just causing so much chaos inside Bacti's base. Bacti is down to 41 villagers at this point, and that has been some serious casualties, especially if you consider the fact that Papipo is at 62, so now you have one heavily damaged Rus player for the Vietnamese team. Horse Archers from Papipo also looking to do some damage at ACCM's base. ACCM base is nice and compact, and he's got defensive towers all around, so it's going to be difficult for those Horse Archers to do that much of a damage. ACCM getting some raids going inside the base of Papipo as well, but the big action is going to happen in the base of Vam. Knights coming in from MZ Shady as well. As things stand, Vam is quite heavily damaged on his eco, he's only at 48 vills, but he also managed to do a lot of damage to Bacti. The question to me now is how Cool is doing. Because Cool is still in Castle Age, but he has had a great eco here, as I'm saying that the Cav Archers move in, and there's gonna be some dead villagers out here. ACCM is also trading, something that we haven't talked about yet. He's probably low on gold, so he had to start setting up that trade, and now, looks like this is a great fight for the Abbasid mains. The Knights are charging in, and there's just no support units against the Knights here for those Longbowmen, so the Knights will just be able to smash all the siege weapons. Behind this one, of course, you do have Horse Archers raiding the base of Cool, so that's the reason why they haven't been responding to this. But this is a beautiful cleanup by MZ Shady, exactly what they needed. They spotted that force, ambushed it, and then just managed to pick off so many of those longbows. You see, ACCM is pretty low on mineable gold, and those are exposed, so that's why he was trading. But those trade cards are getting picked off quite early on over here. On the right side, the longbows will all be dealt with by MZ Shady's knights, so suddenly, this game gets evened out quite a bit, because you have both sides taking some casualties on the eco. Ultimately, army numbers seem to be rather close, and when it comes to the eco numbers, those seem to be fairly decent as well, although you do have 1,000 food per minute for ACCM, as opposed to only 900 for MZ Shady. Cool, also 900 per minute steadily, but Wham on the other hand has a very, very good gold income, the best in the game. Looks like we see some knights coming forward for ACCM, so there is a chance that he just wants to trickle in some knights into the eco of MZ Shady, who now is on 2 town centers, and he still hasn't pulled the food from the guild hall. It's piling up there. And if he pulls it right now, he could afford Imperial Age with it, and that would be just such a massive power spike. I think this is the time to pull it. You don't really want to wait a lot longer, because you really don't want to delay your Imperial Age. Floating 4,000 food in that landmark and not using that could actually lose you the game if your opponents gain additional momentum. Knights coming in from ACCM now to raid the eco of Wham. Wham once again is going to start losing villagers here, and there's no signs of him being able to repel this attack. He isn't even reacting to it. Still no reaction, and Wham is now starting to lose a worrisome amount of villagers inside his eco. Still no reaction. What is happening here to Wham? He has some forces all the way out here, so he might have been focusing on those, but he hasn't even noticed that all of his gold miners got slaughtered, and now he's down to 43 villagers, by far the lowest in the game, and now Wham is in trouble. Because his eco is just an absolute train wreck right now. You see, his base was very, very tiny. He's got a second town center up, so rebooming is gonna be a tiny bit easier, and now he's got crossbows out. Those should be able to clean up the knights, but now he's on the back foot. Pakti also lost some villagers, but I mean, he's at 56 and he's got 70 army, so he has to be happy with that. As things stand, sacred sites are also being fought for. On the left side, you have one for Bhakti. In the middle, you have one for Wham. And on the right side, you had one for Bhakti again, that's being neutralized by Wham as we speak. Still no Imperial Age for either of the players, and MZ Shady still hasn't pulled a single bit of that food from the guild. Well, I think he's waiting too long with it. Obviously, the longer you wait, the more you're going to get. But the question is, how long are you going to survive without that food? That is exactly the power spike that you would be looking for. 5,000 food added to your bank in this very moment could be turned into a ton of knights, could be turned into Imperial Age and a massive power spike. And remember what I said, these knights for ACCM are way better than the ones from MZ Shady right now. MZ Shady needs to get to Imperial to get Royal Bloodlines, otherwise his knights will be way weaker. On the right side, we do have the Berkshire Palace now coming up for cool. He has had a great food eco in this entire game, by far the best, 1800 per minute with the English farming. And now he's getting that landmark right next to that major gold vein, so he's going to have the sacred site covered, he's going to have the gold mine covered. On the left side, we see ACCM expanding with multiple town centers towards the gold mines. He's going up to a total of 3. Finally, you have the food being pulled out for MZ Shady, but now he's a little low on the gold department, so that's the main concern for him. He still should just balance out his eco and go into Imperial, because that power spike could be massive. As things stand, Horse Archers are slowly crawling up for Bhakti. They're playing this one safe. Berkshire Palace now coming in for cool. They want to wait for his Imperial Age upgrades. And for Bhakti, he's not far away from Imperial either, so we could see 2 players in Imp. And for ACCM, looks like he is pretty far, so he's going to stay in Castle Age for a long, long time here. You still have to be very, very careful with your army moving through those stealth forests, because any moment in this game you could get ambushed. And I feel like this is exactly what's going to happen to Papipo. He's running into a trap. He doesn't see the knights, he doesn't see the longbowmen, and you see now the knights are popping out and he's like, oh shoot, we're in trouble. And he hasn't even seen those longbows and crossbows popping out of the forest. Suddenly, the Abbasid mains will have to sound a retreat here. They got ambushed really heavily, and now you got some mangonel fire supporting as well for Bhakti. They need to wait for MZ Shady's Imperial. I think that's the ring condition, but I don't see the food being sold. The guild hall has been reset to gold, but obviously you can't have any kind of gold from there. And behind this, where are the villagers from Papipo? He's been getting slaughtered, and this is just a thing that repeats itself both for Wham and Papipo. They are losing villagers so rapidly to just a couple of knights coming into raid. Those knights are super tanky, so it takes a lot of tower fire to clean them up. And ACCM is really doing work with those knights. He's now at 108 villagers, only 21 army, but he's been doing work. You see, Papipo is at 48 vills, as opposed to Bhakti being at 84. So almost double the villagers for Bhakti now. Most of that comes from the fact that ACCM has been raiding Papipo like there is no tomorrow. And as I said, The biggest problem right now for MZ Shady's team is that they need to utilize that food to something. 6,000 food in the bank and it's being completely unused. This is the trade-off that you're having with the Royal Institute versus the Guild Hall. The Guild Hall is going to give you a ton of resources if you're able to hold on in Castle Age, but you need to use that. If you're not using that, the Royal Institute is better because you can get that upgrade with the extra 80 HP on your knights, and now you see Bam being triple teamed on the far right side. Sacred Sites are now under the control of Vietnam Legends as well, and suddenly the forces of Bhakti, ACCM, and Cool are all in here. Cool having elite longbowman obviously helps a lot as well. With Imperial Age, he could get the volley upgrade for himself. Horse archers are now coming from behind, but I think at this point, Bhakti has to be very, very happy if his team is able to take the longbows and take down the horse archers with them. This being said, looks like the horse archers from Bhakti retreat, and there's a bit of a miscoordination between the Vietnamese players here, because if all of those crossbows are left alone, they will get picked apart by the horse archers, and you really can't ask for much more than that if you are the Abbasid mains. All of those foot archers got absolutely massacred. They took down some heavy cavalry, but basically the entire army of Cool is now gone, and it's going to take a lot of time for him to reinforce. You see, there is just no army on the battlefield right now for him. He was sort of left alone there by the teammates, and since most of his army was crossbowmen, not longbows, the horse archers picked them apart. Many heavy cavalry units fell from MZ Shady, but they managed to clean up one player over here, and that was definitely an accomplishment out there. Now you see some knights coming in, but we haven't talked about the fact that Bhakti is the first player to Imperial, so he's gathering elite horse archer already. He hasn't gotten the range upgrade on those cav archers just yet, as you see Poppy Paw coming in with some woes. If you look at the income per minute, that's still better, way better for the Vietnamese team though. Hulo is almost leading in every single aspect. Bhakti's got the best gold income. ACCM sort of tied for that best gold income. Way better gold income as compared to their opponents, and that's going to have its impact on the game. MZ Shady still floating 5,000 food. Unless he's going into Castle Age, he's in serious, or Imperial Age, he's in serious trouble, and I don't see Imp from him. This is the biggest problem right now for them. They had a bunch of food in that bank, and it was never used. Now you should pull that gold, I think. And, well, you could have already sold some food or wood to go up. But 5,000 food being floated across this game is a massive problem, because you see those green knights are getting massacred by the yellow ones because those yellow knights are better. And as I said, if you pick the Royal Institute, you have to fight in Castle Age, you have to use that power spike. If you pick the Guild Hall, you have to use those resources very carefully, and you just don't see those resources appearing on the battlefield for MZ Shady, simply because those are being floated, and now ACM is able to capitalize on his massive technological advantage. 3 sacred sites still under the control of Vietnam Legends, and now they have 2 players in Imperial, 3 players in fact. You have all 3 Vietnamese players in Imp. This is looking really grim for the Abbasid mains, and as things stand, they're up against 3 sacred sites. They're up against 3 Imperial Age players, and none of them are in Imperial right now. This is going to be a very slow recovery for them, but do they even have the time to recover? That's the big question. As things stand, MZ Shady is not going into Imperial. Looking at Wham, he has the resources to go there. He's got 3,000 gold, but he doesn't really have any army on the battlefield right now. Actually, he has some Lancers going, so not as bad as I thought it would be. And for Poppy Paw, he's completely out of resources. He could actually receive a sling from MZ Shady. Like, there is so much food in the bank for green that he could just send some to purple to help reinforce. There is going to be the high armory coming in for Poppy Paw. I feel like when you're up against this much pressure and having no siege is not a major concern for you right now, I think the Spaskaya Tower is something that you can justify more. The high armory is nice if you start adding siege, but siege is not the main concern right now for the Abbasid mains. And with that, Imperial Age is going to be there for Poppy Paw, but his army numbers aren't looking spectacular. On the right side, you already have a fully upgraded Imperial Age army assembling. Bam is also up to Imperial, though, so we're far from game over just yet. As I said, it's a long road to recovery for the Abbasid mains, but there might be a chance, especially with MZ Shady now going for Red Palace, and once he gets to Imp, he can get Royal Bloodlines himself, and he's going to have a decent amount of those coming in, and the Guild Hall will be working for him for a long, long time. So once he gets all of his upgrades in, his position is going to be better than the one from ACCM. Of course, for that, he first needs to grab those otherwise very expensive upgrades. Wars are up on the left side. The Sacred Site countdown is still going on. That's not something that shows up on the spectator overlay though, so we actually don't know how much time is left on there, but I would expect around 5-6 minutes. The Red Palace is going to help quite a bit when it comes to evening out the odds in this fight, so you gotta be very careful if you're Vietnam Legends here. Pushing into the range of the Red Palace is a disaster, and you see the volleys from that Red Palace will just decimate all those knights. This is really not a fight that you want to take, even with those elite knights fully upgraded. If you're MZ Shady, you just pull your knights back here. You have to pull them back though, because you're losing way too many of them. Looks like we're gonna have some more heavy cavalry coming in. Now you got some bombards going, and if the bombards can take down the Red Palace, this could be massive. Red Palace still doing a ton of work over here though. Those volleys coming out from that building is just massive. Looks like the bombards are being targeted by the knights. Bombards still alive though. One of the bombards might go down over here, but the second one will stay alive. Still, Red Palace keeps on firing, as now it is elite horse archers as well from Poppy Paw, retreating all the way into the base. I feel like this might be a slight overextension from the Vietnamese team, because as you see that Red Palace is just shredding all that army out there. And now, the army numbers are better for Poppy Paw over here in the middle, and with those crossbowmen also arriving on the battlefield, suddenly you see a swing in the favor of the Abbasid mains. That White Tower, or that Red Palace, excuse me, is just doing so much work. That is exactly the reason why they won this fight. It's one of the strongest, if not the strongest defensive landmark. Ton of firepower out there, and now they're cleaning up the Vietnamese army. On the right side though, you do have elite Royal Knights moving in from ACCM though. This is the biggest problem for MZ Shady. He lost his numbers, so it's gonna be difficult for him to match what ACCM can put on the battlefield. And you see Vam is trying to fight this with elite Lancers, but those are no match for the quality of those yellow Royal Knights, as ACCM is just going for a town center snipe. There are still the landmarks to go, and there is some crossbows coming in, so ACCM will lose some numbers here. In the middle though, ACCM has another batch of heavy cavalry, and right now, it's all about those numbers. ACCM has a steady 50 heavy cavalry units right now on the field, whereas on the other side for MZ Shady, right now it's only 26. Also, out of gold he is, and that's a serious concern right now for him. He's got the guild hall set on gold, but it's only 400 right now, so it's not gonna last long. And on the right side, the big gold is taken by Cole's team. On the left side, the big golds are taken, and ACCM is also trading. Something that I love to see from our French player here. French often fall into the trap of not having enough map control and then running out of gold, and suddenly just forced to make horsemen instead of knights. So setting up an early trade is definitely something that helps avoid that. Even if you lose map control, you will have the chance to get more knights on the battlefield, because you will have gold income. Some foot archers hitting the field over here for MZ Shady. French archers is not something that you want to see, and those Royal Knights are just not there in quality right now for green. 270 HP versus 364, that's a massive discrepancy. With the amount of firepower Wham has over here, they can stall this out, but remember, 3 sacred sites are still under the control of Vietnam Legends, and now I feel like this momentum is just too big. Bombards are setting up, and at this point, it is the quality and the quantity of those Royal Knights. Those are great at soaking up arrow fire, those are just great as a meat shield type of a unit. And then the units behind, the longbowmen, the horse archers, will be able to finish off what's left. Horse archers now coming in for Poppy Paw. At this point, I think for Bhakti, he has to be happy with an even-ish trade right now. Bombards are setting up. Town center is down, it's being repaired by Wham though. Knights moving in to intercept the siege weapons. Crossbow still cleaning up all those knights though. But as we speak, that sacred site countdown is getting closer and closer. The horse archers from Poppy Paw do clean up most of the forces here from Bhakti, but the mangonels are now coming in. And with another cavalry charge from ACCM and another batch of horse archers coming in from Bhakti, I'm not sure how long Poppy Paw's team can hold here, especially with the French player running out of gold. That's the most disturbing sign. 0 gold income for so long, and you just can't play French in a team game without gold income. Same thing for Vam. 2 players completely out of gold. I feel like the problem was that they lost map control in Castle Age, partly because they decided to go for the Guild Hall instead of the Royal Institute. So with that, they had the eco advantage in the long run, but of course having the Royal Institute missing meant that the cavalry from ACCM was so much better. They lost map control, and now the French player has no gold income. There is no gold income for the Mongols player. Vam taps out, and his teammates will follow. The Abbasid mains fall to the Vietnam Legends in a crazy series. This was really an absolutely exceptional series. Game number 1 being won by the Abbasid mains, and then game number 2, 2 teams tying up a wonder, and really there was just no way to tell which team was leading. Both teams claimed they had the wonder of faster. The game said that the Abbasid mains got the victory. However, in-game, the notifications said that the Vietnam Legends had the Wonder up faster, so they played that game thinking that they have the Wonder advantage, and because of all of those contradicting signs, in the end, the game was deemed inconclusive. There was no way to tell who actually is right and who's wrong, and with that, obviously the best thing to do was to give a shot at the players and have them replay it. That's exactly what they did. Vietnam Legends won it. And then on the open map of the Abbasid mains, they started out really good. The two Rus players were head to head when it comes to the gold income. We're going to take a look at the statistics in a matter of seconds over here. So both Rus players were able to secure a ton of relics, but ultimately it was the longer lasting gold income of the Vietnamese team that really set things up. Vietnam Legends, a team that's very active in team games, or well, it used to be active in Age of Empires 2 as well. And in Age of Empires 2, everybody knows that team games are won or lost on having the trade up. So they have that experience and they know exactly that they might need to set up their trade a lot faster than you would anticipate. And ultimately, if you look at the gold collected, that's going to be the deciding factor. 26,000 for Cool, 36,000 for ACCM, as opposed to MZ Shady having only 16,000. It's a 20,000 gold difference between the two French players. And for Papipo, 14,000, not really relevant because he's the Rus player. What's more relevant, though, is that there is 9,000 more wood for Backty between the two Rus players. And of course, 15,000 gold for Vam playing as the Mongols. Of course, he can go for non-gold units of the Mongols, but ideally he wants to play it with Lancers. So that obviously was set back quite heavily. KD, ultimately, Papipo having a very nice KD. ACCM 297 to 209. Part of that was the amount of villagers he killed. If you look at the timeline real quickly, this is what you're looking at. Papipo losing villagers over here, and then Vam also had a moment where he lost quite a lot of vills. The colors don't match the in-game colors, but you see, if I just bring up the Abbasid main villager graphs real quickly, you see this. Drops everywhere. Raid over here, raid over here. Those raids were constant. Now compare that to the villager graphs of Vietnam Legends. You basically had Cool losing some villagers over here to the raid. That was the horse archer raid that came in. Backty was taking a big punishment, but ACCM was never touched. And part of the reason why things went so well for them is because ACCM was never touched, and also beyond the 20-minute mark, you basically had no pressure on Backty either. So really, after this dip here, there was just no pressure coming on Vietnam Legends Eco, and they had a consistent gold income as well with the trade setup, ultimately ended up snowballing the game, and with that, the Vietnam Legends move into the quarterfinals here. Absolutely spectacular performance. Abbasid mains, a bit of a heartbreaker for them, obviously, because they were hoping to just say, okay, we won that Hill and Dale game with the Wonders, but ultimately, as I said, both teams claim that they have won, and there was just no way for the admins to decide who actually is right and who is wrong. There were signs for both teams pointing towards their victory. Ultimately, the most reasonable thing to do was just to deem the game inconclusive, and with that came a replay, and then bringing it to the home map of Abbasid mains. The Abbasid mains weren't able to close it out, and it is the Vietnam Legends advancing to the next round.